credits, correct?
Yes, is the way it worked out, yes. 60 is the minimum requirement for the associate degree, but the way we figured out the courses, it came out to 61 credits to make it all work. And like I said, we'll take these, each student's gonna be individually advised and take it per student, because there could be changes in curriculum on either side in future semesters, and, we'll work with the student and make sure it all works so that they have a good experience.
And then you said you were going to tailor it to the students, so those who want to go on for a bachelor's degree or whatever, they'll be able to select some classes that will count toward that.
Yeah,
Majors
depending when they indicate an interest in a degree pathway, we can advise them into different science classes or math classes that would best match whatever the degree is. I know within POSHE, if you enter into a POSHE institution with an associate's degree, then it waives the liberal studies classes that are required at the institution unless it's something that's specified by the degree. So unless there's a specific course that they're looking for you to have taken, your associate's degree would exempt you from any of the liberal studies within POSHE. And so that applies to IUP, obviously, any of our sister schools. I don't know beyond the state system if it applies, but I can speak for POSHE.
Absolutely.
It's an incredible step in that toward that goal of taking IUP, which is this incredible resource we have in our community, and changing that idea that some of our students have of, oh, that's the fifth year of high school, to this is an advantage. That being an Indiana area school district student, we have a pipeline where for $6,000 you can enter into the university as a junior. It's a head start on life. It's a tremendous opportunity, and it's, I'm so grateful for the work you've done, because this really does provide that hope and opportunity for a lot of kids that we cover.
So to be clear, if I get my associate degree from this program,
Yes.
then in 2 years I can get my undergraduate degree?
As long as you meet the degree
Yeah,
requirement.
I
Yes,
understand.
yes, absolutely.
So in 2 more years I can have my master's, and 2 more years after that I have my PhD? Wow. Yeah, but
A good start,
But at 18, I have my associate degree, and at 20, I have my graduate in college, which is a good 2 years ahead of when I would have normally, when I did it.
Absolutely, and if they come to IUP and continue on, they could possibly, go right into their master's
And
too.
at
for that.
$3,000 for the first 2 years per year, that's phenomenal. That's a phenomenal step up.
It's a huge cost savings.
I would just like to say a word of thanks and gratitude. Both WCCC and IUP have been both extremely receptive and responsive to working with our students, promoting these programs in the school. I knew what each program brought to the table, to see them come together and work collaboratively for our students is incredible. Thank you, guys.
You're very welcome. We love working with all of you. I have Rob practically on speed dial these days. Every time I get something.
How many kids can you get to
That
sign
way
up?
too, so.
We're gonna find out. We're gonna sell it this summer, and
Yeah.
we're gonna invite Kristen and Jen back in fall to do some family nights and get
So the
this.
sophomore,
And Amber, obviously you're invited as well.
so the incoming sophomores could start this fall.
Yes,
In theory.
yes, definitely.
Well,
Now, the
but
English
even a
col-
junior, even a junior
College
could.
writing, is that English? I'm just curious, English 100.
101.
Oh, it is 101.
Yeah.
Good.
But even an upperclassman could benefit, they could get a year
Oh,
of
yeah.
college, so even
me.
Wade.
That brings up a good question. So students could start into this and maybe not finish it, but then there'd be other, they'd be
Yeah.
There's
ideal
some
students.
transferable
Yeah,
credits.
there's still
Right.
transferable credits, or they could take, depending on where they land, maybe they go full-time that summer after they graduate to wrap up whatever final credits at the regular rate they would be missing. And then they could get their AA that way as well, if that was something that was really important. Otherwise, they could just amass all of the credits.
Will summer be
Great
available to
idea.
them during these years?
Absolutely.
Oh, good.
We started allowing sophomores to start taking classes this summer between their freshman and sophomore year. So through IUP, sophomores are allowed 1 class a year, and then juniors and seniors are allowed 2 summer, 2 fall, 2 spring, 2, sophomores 1, 1, 1. And then there's some exceptions to that are taken on a case-by-case basis.
And I
Sounds
would
great.
also like to say, thanks to our IHS faculty, with their help and the efforts and energy of our faculty, we have really expanded the number of offerings for both WCCC and IUP. And it has gone from maybe an opportunity within our school to one of our programs that we can provide our students.
We've worked very closely with Indiana in the last few years to allow for a lot of courses to count course for course, so they double dip, or they count as elective credits. We've greatly expanded the opportunities that they have, which is phenomenal. And the kids are by far taking advantage of it. When I was here in the spring for an information session thing, during the day, I had 90 kids show up that displayed interest. And we have a lot taking classes this summer and a huge number in the fall as well. And we expect that that number will continue to grow each semester as it has for the last few years.
Also, the ability of doing the online section, especially at IUP, one of the problems we have is getting a kid's schedule coordinated with the IUP schedule in the afternoon at this time frame, and getting transported and all that other stuff. So being able to do some of these online and not having to go on campus all the time is really will expand the
Absolutely. The
population.
students prefer the online because it's just more convenient with all of their other school activities. And in fact, they don't have to leave school and miss so many class periods. So for our classes, a lot of them do opt for the online options that are asynchronous.
Now, I would also say, as an unintended but a great benefit, is with the new graduation pathways, pathway 3 and 4, where students can demonstrate that they can do college level work. Having a greater inventory of these classes, aligning with our students' interest, really helps them meet those pathways if they don't happen to do it through Keystone pathways.
And we certainly have seen that the kids that take the college class, dual credit the college classes, have better success in college.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dr. Reed,
They're not so surprised.
Mrs. Cunningham has her hand up whenever.
Mrs. Cunningham.
Josie, you there?
Time's up.
Well, maybe she changed her mind.
Dr. Runge back there from our committee too. Do you have any questions or any other questions from the committee? So is this something we vote on?
We will vote, we will approve this program next Monday, and yeah.
All right, I suggest we put it on the agenda. All agreed?
Absolutely, yeah.
Sally
Put
agreed?
it on the
Oh my
agenda
heavens,
first.
I'm so happy with this.
Yeah.
All right,
Make it first.
it'll be on the agenda for Monday. Thank you.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so
Thank you
much
very
for your
much.
time this evening.
Appreciate you
Thank you
guys.
for coming. That makes sense. Nikki is their associate for $6.
Next on the agenda is the Servo human trafficking.
They're a hard act to follow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, if they would have had that, when I was in school, my kids were in
Oh,
school,
I
and
know.
got grandkids coming now, so we'll work on that in our school district. But thank you all for having us. We are here on behalf of the Acervo Project. We're an anti-human trafficking organization. We're based out of Moon Township near the Pittsburgh Airport. About 80% of our work is done here in the United States, and about 20% is overseas. Before I go further, I want to introduce Colleen Height, who's another one of our volunteers, and is also has a long reign here at Indiana School District.
Yes.
And Mr. Doug Langenfelder from Senator Dush's office, who has also been helping us spearhead in these communities.
I work on nothing but human trafficking for Senator Dush.
Nice.
I'm the only staffer in the Senate that does that.
We are so thankful for that. So to give you an idea of what we do, the operations side of what we do with the Acervo Project is we're basically an intelligence gathering organization. So our analysts and our cyber team go after the pedophiles online, mostly, it usually is, and build cases against them as well as identifying victims. We then turn all that information, we build the case and we turn it over to local law enforcement or Homeland Security. So that way they can go in and make those arrests much quicker and make the rescues much quicker. We're not a beat down the door kind of organization. That's not what we do. We were started in 2017 by Mr. Joe Sweeney, who has a very long, extensive career in law enforcement and things and has traveled all over the world. And when he really realized how big this problem was, he said, we need to do something. And so the Acervo project was born out of that, and in knowing that law enforcement just does not have the time, the money, and the resources that it takes. So that's what our cyber team does on that end. The second part of what we do is the education, which is why I'm here, why we're here. I'm the awareness and education coordinator for them. I learned about human trafficking about a dozen years ago. It broke my heart. I said, we need to do more about this. So through just a lot of training on my own and learning and growing, and working with Joe and the Acervo project since 2017, I got connected with them. I love what we do, mainly because we're such an organization of utmost integrity. We'd not be with them if it wasn't. Education is the key in this. If we don't start educating, we don't put a dent in it. Human trafficking is the fastest growing crime worldwide. It is second only to drug trafficking. It is expected to pass it up very shortly if it has not already. When we're talking about this industry, it's a criminal enterprise, so it's very difficult to get exact numbers on a lot of things. What we do know is it's over $150 billion a year industry, and $100 billion of that comes from the sex slave industry. Here in the United States of America, the average age of a child sucked into this and trafficked is 14 years old. We see that number going down though, because the demand for younger and younger children goes higher. Also, the younger trafficker can get that kid, the more money they're worth to them. So they will a lot of times go to great lengths to get them trafficked. Since COVID, especially the amount that is going on online has exploded, literally exploded. It is well into the 90th percentile of trafficking happens online. It is, most people, when they find out what I do, I often hear, well, I watch my kids at the bus stop and I watch them at Walmart. I'm like, that's great. And that same person, that same parent will turn around, hand that 10, 12, 14-year-old a phone and let them take it to bed. And I want to poke my eyeballs out because they're not understanding how this works. 93% of the time, they're going to know their trafficker or think they know their trafficker. It's called the grooming process. And they're very good at it. It works fantastically. The predators will do what they call, wake it up. No worries. They'll do what they call fishing. And every night, their prime time to do their fishing is 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. They might throw out like 200 lines somewhere. And they're just waiting for a kid to say, I hate myself. I'm ugly. I want to kill myself. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. I think you're beautiful. I'm here for you. I understand. I'm right here. Boom. They just start reeling them in, building that relationship. If you're in the schools at all, you know that the amount of sexting that goes on. The youth today, it's no big deal to them. And unfortunately, we're really not telling them any different. So they're not understanding that. So that predator builds that relationship with them. Again, usually online, not always, but most of the time. And all they need is one picture. Every kid knows not to give out their personal information. They're taught that. That's good. But when that predator starts working and they just glean information slowly off them, sometimes they'll work in a team. So they're all on Fortnite or they're all on that wherever the kids are at. And they'll work getting that information. So then they're like, just text me a picture. It's no big deal, right? Boom. Once that picture hits, that's it. That's when the sextortion starts. Game over. We want more. Well, I'm not going to give you any more. Oh, yeah, you are, because I know where you go to school. I know where your parent works. I know you've got a little sibling. I'm going to come get them if you don't give me more. Whatever they have to say, they will do. And we've seen them say it all. And then they're stuck in that.
Brenda, I'd like to add that for those folks that say, my kids, they're safe. We make sure, I watch them online and stuff like that. One fact that I'd like you to leave here with tonight, over 400,000 perps are online every second of every day. If you think your child has not run into a predator online, you're fooling yourself. Because these individuals sit in these chat rooms and they're just, as Brenda said, they're just waiting. 400,000 every second of every day. And their primary times are from 10 p.m. till 2 a.m. If you're letting that child go to his or her room with that phone, maybe it's time to get them a flip phone, something that doesn't, actually give them access to the internet and stuff like that. And these are the sort of things that a servo will teach these children, how to protect themselves, what's out there, and why. I'm sorry,
No, that's okay.
but while you were online, I really wanted to push that electronic world issue and how absolutely dangerous it is.
One other thing too, though, they say, I check my child's phone, I see what they're doing. These people let those kids know how to hide apps within apps, so their parents can't find them.
Part of what we do with the education with the students, and again, why it's so vitally important, is not only educating them how these predators work, but we give them hope. So if you've been approached, if you've already been trafficked, there's hope in this. We're gonna help you work through it. With the AI stuff that's going on now, they don't even have to have a nude photo. If they have the information, have your kid's picture, boom, they can make it look like it's a porn. What we're seeing, the most recent, and the attacks are on American boys. Teenage boys are through the roof right now because they know they've got some money. So they're going for the higher end kids right now. Since the world has been connected with 5G internet, you've got a lot of these third world countries. They have huge, massive warehouses. Mexico, Ivory Coast, Nigeria, Pakistan, anywhere you want to pick. And that's what they do all day, is target all the kids. So the boys, especially beautiful young girl they fall in love with, you have no way of knowing if that person is who they say they are online. You cannot know. I make sure we have a tip line at the Acervo Project. I make sure all the kids go home with that tip line number. So that if they have a question on it, you're not sure who you're playing with, you better find out. Call us. Our analysts can check it out. It's easy for them. They're very good at what they do. Before we go in and do the program, I sit down with your superintendent, your principals. I go through the entire thing, all the videos, everything that will be said and done. They have the opportunity to say, yes, we want that video, or no, we want to opt out. We want to do this or that. So there's no surprises in it.
Teachers also.
The teachers too. That's our main goal, is to go in and educate your teachers and staff first. So they know what's coming, and they've got resources at their fingertips then too, of like, okay, what do we do if a kid comes forward and says this? And then go in and educate your students. Ideally, I'd love to educate every parent. I think that's phenomenal. Getting the parents there, if you know how, I'm all on board, but it's a heck of a hard thing a lot of times to get parents to come in.
And we're already talking with Senator Pittman to work on a parents' night so that the teachers, the parents, the administration are all informed. They understand what's going on before it hits the kids. Once it hits the students and the students have questions, your counselors already know and they're prepared. Parents are hopefully informed and prepared so that these questions don't catch people off guard.
And we also provide you with a letter to opt out. So any parent that does not want their student there, they can opt out. We know that there's going to be triggers hit. When I talk with the students, I always start out with, this is in no way meant to frighten you, but it's absolutely meant to empower you. Knowledge is power, and we need that. And if at any time during this presentation you feel uncomfortable or you need to leave, absolutely fine. Excuse yourself. Your teachers are here. Your counselors are here. They cared enough about you to have us in, and they're here for you if you need to talk. Or if you want to stay after, we're here as well. We usually come with a team, depending on 3 or 4, usually of us come when we do a student presentation. Ideally, we like to present to like the programs for 6th through 12th grade students. Ideally, to do like 6th through 8th and then 9th through 12th. I'm not sure how your school's set up. So we're flexible with that, but some of the videos just hit better with those younger students, some of them hit better with the older ones. And just gives them, even if it's not happening to them, it's gonna help them recognize if it's happening to a friend of theirs and be able to speak up. Any questions at all?
I
Yes,
have a question.
sure.
When you target the parents, and I think that's the key thing, because I think the parents might be very naive to all of this. I'm not
Most are.
sure. I am very naive to it. Do you do a special program, and you're talking about doing one, do you do a special parent program?
We can, yeah, we do like a general public. The student program is geared definitely for the students. It has a lot more videos and things like that in it. And then we do a general public one that's for parents or anybody that wants to come.
And then I think of our whole population of our cyber educated students who we don't even see.
Right. Yeah,
I'd like to.
Another concern.
for sure.
I'd like to stress how important that parent education is.
Oh.
One mom refused to give her daughter a cell phone because she realized there's a threat out there. Her daughter would get up late at night, and on her mom's phone, she put an app and did all of her appointments on her mom's phone, and her mother never knew it. And so the education needs to be across the board, just like you said.
And I think with the parents, this is such an urgent emergency type of situation that I don't even know how important we can stress it. And I like the idea of the students as well. But I think until you hit the parents first, is anybody agreeing with me about the parents? Until you hit the parents, I think that you need to do the double here, the parents and the students.
That's ideal. I would
Yeah.
absolutely.
And I don't know, when's the first time we've talked about this? So we didn't really discuss it.
Right, and that's why they're here this
Yeah,
evening. We're
That's
gonna,
great.
with your permission, we're gonna move forward with a program to educate our teachers, educate our students. And then we did talk about having some sort of parent component.
Absolutely.
We're not exactly sure what that looks like just yet. We might turn it into a safety night like we did a few years ago, where we have a couple of different topics for the parents to kind of invite them in and kill a few birds with that stone. But we just have to build it.
Definitely requires further discussion to really, hash out all the details of how this is gonna work.
Well, that's discussion between them and the administration. Do we need a motion to move this forward?
We're gonna put it on the agenda for next, we just wanted you guys to be, because it's such a sensitive topic and because it's something where, we're gonna have children opt out and, we just wanted the board's acknowledgement and approval before we move forward.
And the first step will be the administrators, if I understood it correctly.
Correct.
right?
I think
they
so.
will know, so you will all know everything before
Correct.
you
We're
decide.
trying to do
to hold the teachers or
administration.
the kids,
Teachers,
and then
kids,
parents.
then parents,
Right, that's great.
Parents before kids.
or parents before kids.
Yeah, I think
All right.
parents before kids, and the teachers will be able to know, they know their own students better than anyone, so I think the teachers play a key role in this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what Brenda was saying, about the teachers will recognize the behaviors before anybody else will. I mean,
The reason Senator Dush has one individual doing nothing but human trafficking is he's trying to get ahead of that tidal wave that's about to hit. Think of this as, back in the 60s, you probably weren't even born yet, but my
Thank you.
principal got up and said, hey, we don't have a drug problem in our high school.
Yeah.
And 6 weeks later, we had one of my classmates die of a heroin overdose.
Yeah.
He gets back up in front of the whole student body and says, we're going to fight this and we're going to work on this. This is an issue. Well, with human trafficking, it's growing so quickly because the business model. When I sell you drugs, I'm out of drugs. I now have the risk and the work and everything else to go out and get drugs so that I can sell some more. When I sell an 8-year-old, I can sell her 10, 12 times a night. And I can do the same thing the next night and the same thing the night after, to the point where they're making somewhere around $150,000 a year off of these individuals they're trafficking. and a typical trafficker has 3 individuals working for them. That's almost 500,000 or $500,000 a year at almost no risk. Because you don't need ropes and chains to confine and tie somebody into slavery, which is exactly what we're talking about. This is modern day slavery. You don't need the chains to do that anymore. There's all sorts of ways, whether it's drugs, whether it's beatings, it is horrendous. And what we tell parents will be very different than what we're going to tell kids. But there's a tidal wave coming. And imagine how different the United States would look if we had fought drugs as hard as we fought smoking back in those days. Today's kids think smoking's not so good. They think there's nothing wrong with marijuana. Gateway drug, right?
We teach
I
math,
think it is.
we teach DARE. We need to teach this. You know, I realize teaching math and talking about drunk driving or wrecking a car is very different from talking about sextortion, pornography, and prostitution. I get that. But we don't hand a 6th grader a set of car keys and say, here, go. But we are handing them a cell phone, a computer, a gaming station, an iPad, and we're not telling them anything. And we're not protecting them at all. We're not saying, here's a place to go, here's the signs. You know, if somebody approaches you and they seem like a good friend, then they're saying, oh, let's move to Discord. Let's move to here. These are classic signs of traffickers. They're gonna bounce them around to different platforms. Those are all red flags. You're playing something, you're playing a game, you met your new best friend and suddenly ask you for a nude photo or to meet up for sex or view online pornography. Red flags, stop. Have you met that person in person? Because if you haven't met them in person, you don't know who you're talking to. You better take a step back and think. You know, I told the last student body I talked to, said, I know just like Mothers Against, just like MAD, there's gonna be some of you that are gonna go drive drunk anyway, unfortunately. And like this, there's gonna be some of you that you're gonna sext anyway, but you're never gonna sext again without knowing the consequences that it might be. We've at least told you that. You're at least informed. And you have some tools at your disposal now. So yeah, I'm, as you were talking, like just on this end, we know a lot of these stories. I've sat with those kids and those parents. And that's a fire in me because we have the ability to stop this, but we don't want to talk about those things. Those are tough. You're right, they're tough. But that's where our kids are at, and we've put them there. It's not changing. We need to figure out how to work within that. As we all know, there's a lot of good in technology, a huge amount of good, but there's some real evil too. And we need to get that out. So we're probably over time.
We're over time.
I'm sorry. Thank you all. Thank you all for having us in.
Thank you for
very
calling
much.
us later.
so much.
Appreciate it. We'll be in touch after next week.
Thank you. Sounds great.
You will put this on the agenda for
Yes.
motion.
Yes,
Okay,
with the committee's permission.
I say yes.
absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
We appreciate it very much.
On a lighter
Guys,
note,
I apologize, I didn't see you back there.
hey, on a lighter note, we won the game.
Nice.
3-0.
3-0. Awesome. That's good. Dan gets to keep his job then.
Hey, wasn't it that
Another one.
Tom's one of the businesses that sponsored it too. He got some good advertising. Oh, no.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, there's Jenna. I didn't see you, Jenna. Hey.
So Randy, if you could pull up the presentation for Mr. Daniel.
That should be enough copies for everybody, I hope. Also, I'll
I'm happy
explain
to
what
see
these
you
are in
again
a
too.
moment.
Dawn,
Thank
okay.
you. Explain what all of these
got
are.
gifts.
Wow. Gee. Nice. We like you the best already. You're giving us free stuff. Old people like free stuff.
Okay. All right, so we got rid of all of this stuff. I'm actually gonna, if you don't mind, take this. No, I forgot to give you.
I apologize for the climate.
No, you're fine. This is the last presentation with events, and then the climate on top of it. So I want to make sure I don't burst into flames here during this presentation. But everybody, good evening. My name is Donovan Daniels, and I am the Director of Student Leadership at Indiana University of PA. I am here to talk about a student organization that we have on campus called UBORA, Men of IUP, as well as a conference that UBORA, that we use UBORA to promote, that is available for all of our students and hopefully some of yours. All right, so first and foremost, UBORA Men of IUP comes from a Swahili word that means the excellence and the progress. And what we're hoping to convey to our students that are underrepresented, both racially and ethnically at IUP, is that they are excellent and that they have quality to offer. Right? So you might say, well, why do we need to share that with them and not all students? Well, all students need this message, but we see that there is an 8 percentage point drop in persistence rates between overall student populations entering in 2019 and Black male students or Black students entering in 2019 in 4-year public institutions. If we were to look at Black men, it actually drops down a considerable margin. Black women have been saving the Black community for quite some time. That's just a personal statement, not a part of the presentation. So, you know, we're looking at overall, again, Black students entering into 4-year public institutions. If we looked at 2-year public institutions, the numbers are worse. If we looked at 4-year privates, the numbers are worse. And just so we understand that, I don't want you to think I'm pulling this out of nowhere. This is coming from our national clearinghouse data that was available in 2021. Okay, so we want to make sure we're conveying to these students that they are excellent inherently, just because everyone has value. Now, we also want to point out that this organization was not just birthed because it's statistical data, but about fall of 2020, we were reeling from the social and political climate that was going on that year, particularly with the murder of George Floyd. There were a lot of students that did not see value in themselves as a result of that. And this is not a referendum on policing. It's not an opinion about that. It's just a matter of a fact that students were coming to the university in fall of 2020, and they were not seeing themselves as having value, and they were fearful. We said, how do we change this? So we launched UBORA Men of IUP. We provide a weekly gathering for students, and we actually can move to the next slide. I apologize for not giving you that heads up. Okay, so our mission is to point out the potential for our students. We want them to recognize their inherent worth and realize their full potential. And we convey this every week through, if we can go to the next slide, through a litany of activities. So we have weekly discussions on a variety of topics. Sometimes they're planned by us as administrators. Sometimes they're planned by the students. If there's a current event they want to talk about, we shift. We pivot to whatever it is the students need. Over our a little bit less than 5-year history, we've also offered Sunday dinners, which are really cool. Just tapping into something that's very popular in that cultural background. We've also had conferences. Again, we're going to talk about that in a moment. And we've done some specialty workshops more recently. We actually partnered with the IUP Rifle Club and with the IUP ROTC chapter and had a gun safety training at one of the shooting ranges on campus. A lot of these students have a negative perception about firearms, and so we said, okay, how can we help change that? We also got to allow them to hear Dr. Jamal Gosa, recent recipient of a PhD, IUP alum, who was talking about healthy decisions as it pertains to alcohol, drugs, and other substances, called Success Sips. So when we can work with another department on campus or another programming entity, we do so. But otherwise, we're having really robust conversations. If we can go to the next slide. We have 4 pillars that we talk about with all of our meetings, and we ask the students how they're living into these 4 pillars each week. And we leave about 5 to 10 minutes for them to be able to talk about that And usually there's some really cool conversations that are sparked from it. Sometimes we never get to the topic at hand because we're stuck on the 4 pillars for 45 minutes. We can go to the next slide. This affirmation is said at the beginning of every meeting. I won't make you all say it. I want to give you a couple seconds to look at the slides. Sometimes we need that reminder. We have these young men say it all the time. We end with a robust clap at the end. Again, I have a video, which is why I'm moving quite quickly, so you can have that video to see at the end. And we actually do the affirmation at the end of it. It's quite a powerful thing to see. And sometimes the students come into that meeting, they may have just gotten a bad grade on a test. They may have just found out that they are on academic probation. They may have just found out that a parent is sick. They don't always believe this. We have them recite it anyway. And it's amazing how positive affirmation can have such a robust impact on the student individually and collectively. Usually if a student's in a bad mood and then they proceed to do this recitation, by the end of it, they're smiling, that they're feeling empowered. For statements that, again, they're just words, but if you can get a student to believe them. So let's move on. One of our achievements, and you can see some of the other ones on the screen, one of our achievements that we're really proud of, you see a picture of it, is that we won in 2023 the Outstanding Program Award at the Student Leadership Awards that we have every year. Out of now my office at the time, I was not in charge of the office, so I didn't give us the award. But we won that award 3 years after starting this program, which is quite amazing. We have had so many students that have graduated from undergraduate studies, and while UBORA does not take full credit for it, these students give us credit for giving them a boost in their second and third year. We've had a few students that have gone on to work at the Big Four accounting firms, Price Cooper Waterhouse. I always get that messed up. But basically, one of the big accounting firms, my mentee Juan Gonzalez Zarate is now working at. We've had 2 students go on to grad school, one of which has already completed their program this spring. So we're seeing some really exciting things from it. It's a little bit too early to start saying that we're, specifically responsible for any GPA increases or anything like that. I don't think we can take any credit for it, but there's definitely some anecdotal data that we're making an impact. One of the things we're really excited about is that we had our inaugural Excellence in Progress conference in April of 2023, and that's what I'm here to talk about. Can we move to the next slide, please? Actually, move one more, sorry. So Excellence in Progress, again, in April 15, 2023, we had our first conference, and we had students from Duquesne, Robert Morris, Shippensburg, which blew us away that somebody was coming from Shippensburg University, with very little marketing. We didn't send this at full blast. People were just hearing about it word of mouth. Penn West Cal had students in attendance. We go to the next slide, we see some pictures from 2024, and we actually had our keynote speaker, Dr. Curtis Spencer, IUP alumnus, who is a Shippensburg faculty member. He brought that group in 23, and we thought, man, let's bring them back. So his students were able to attend. We had 54 students this year and 53 this past year. And there was conversation a few weeks back with your superintendent and your principal discussing the opportunity of having students attend the conference. And we identified 24 students that would be considered Black or Brown students or culturally or racially underrepresented male students at your university or your high school. What we said to Principal Wade or Principal McElhaney when we were talking a few weeks back is that all students are invited, right? I have a nephew, a niece, and a godson who attend schools in this district, as you may or may not know. And having students that are Black students who were born in this district, likely it's impossible, I would even argue, for them to grow up and not have any white friends or to have friends from other backgrounds, right? And so as a result, when we were talking to Principal McElhaney on the phone, he had said, okay, so what does underrepresented mean for you all? And we talked about what that meant. And then he said, okay, so I think we have a certain population of students that we can appeal to. And I said, no, all of your students can attend because I know that these young men have connections with other people. And by no means are we saying that this conference is just for Black and Brown students. We're saying instead that the content is targeting topics that are pertaining to Black and Brown men. All right, so as I'm inviting you at the end of this presentation to have students attend the conference, which we're going to be having in October this year because we're shifting it to a fall program, I want you to understand that while it is targeting or the content is focused on Black and brown male students, we are not by any way saying that your other students cannot attend. If they believe that they'll be impacted, they should show up. All right, let's move on to the next slide. Here are some of the topics we've covered over the 2-year span. Some dynamic speakers.
Excuse me, what
Yes.
do you do for financial wellness? Where do you start?
With financial wellness, we had Dr. Roger Briscoe, retired IUP faculty member. He was actually focusing a lot on budgeting and saving, was where he focused. We could take that anywhere though, so I gave you very generic concepts that we covered, but I remember that because he's my mentor.
I
like
think
a
it's
father
such a
figure.
key connection
guy.
to resilience.
Sorry, say that again?
Well, we have a course,
think
there's a
it-
course, financial wellness too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I
Awesome.
created it and taught it. But people here don't know that.
Well, maybe we go.
No, I-
No, you wanna come in and
I'm
jump
busy
in?
here.
Good question, I'm sorry.
I think it's a powerful connection, perhaps more powerful to resiliency,
Sure,
to learn that fairly young.
sure.
Surprised what people learn and what they don't learn about it, and you see sort of mistakes. And then people doing things right,
Sure,
starting with credit cards,
sure.
you know, understanding basic economic concepts. So I know you mentioned resiliency at the beginning,
Mhm.
so I think that would be a topic for a whole conference, I think.
I'd be happy to have you at the table to help plan it. As the Director of Student Leadership, this is my job now, to plan conferences, to work with student organizations. We have 320 of them on campus. Eubora is just one. Since I helped found it, of course, I give them a little bit more attention, naturally, but I work with all of our groups and we try to create new opportunities. We actually have a women's conference, women's leadership conference that will be happening in the spring of 25 because we realized that that was a gap. Some of our female students were like, okay, you're doing all this for the Black men and statistically we get it, but we want a conference. So we're gonna make that happen in the spring.
I think the lack of economic understanding is the root cause of most problems in education.
Sure.
Trying to figure out how to finance your education starting.
Sure. You know, we definitely have a lot of issues with it. With Dr. Briscoe, he didn't cover it as much. I was reflecting on this past weekend. I don't want to get lost because we definitely want to get to this video. But we talked about how trauma can influence spending as well, right? And so there's this implication about how we're addressing mental health issues plays a part in how people spend. Not putting my mother out there because I know that there's notes being taken, so do not tell Judith
You're
Daniel what I
online.
said about her.
She might be
Right?
watching.
She might be watching online. But no, my mother needs a vacation every year. It's part of her mental health process, right? If she doesn't get away, she feels like she can't make it through the full year. So she knows about August, September. That's when she's tired of her boss. She's thinking about retiring even though she's not ready for it yet. And she's got to get that vacation in. So a lot of people tie their spending to how they're feeling. And we just got to, talk about that early on. All right. Let's move to the next slide. So here's some of the institutions and employers where our speakers hailed from. One of the ones I'm really proud of, again, not to say that any one's better than the other, but two that stick out is Amazon. Our IUP alumnus, Lou Mobley Jr., a good friend of mine, former left guard for IUP football. He now works at Amazon in their digital content area for their sports division. He's one of the people behind the Kelsey documentary. I'm not sure if there's any Eagles fans around the table, but I am an Eagles fan, and the Jason Kelsey doc went out last year. And Lou was a part of the process of getting people paid. He's a contract agent for them, which is really cool. And that therapeutic service that's run by Hopeton Bailey, three-time IUP alumnus who owns his own counseling practice and works at the University of Pittsburgh. Let's move on real quick. All right, so we're gonna have our next one in October, which kind of leads to the proposal. We're gonna move on again. I would love to see your students at this conference. What I'm looking for is for you to consider, not today obviously, but to consider an investment in your students by sponsoring them to attend the conference. I give you an estimated number because quite frankly, I'm not sure what it's gonna cost us. We were able to offer it to you this spring at $10 a piece. We were way undercharging. My shirts alone, because I'm wearing one of the commemorative t-shirts, the shirt alone was $15. So we take a loss immediately by charging you 10, and we don't mind that. maybe not so big of a loss, because you might imagine IUPs going through financial challenges, just like the school district is. So we're trying to be more fiscally responsible. We'll try to find donors, of course, outside of that, but we'll just, make sure that our outside guests aren't taking too many of the resources away from our current students, which is what our funding is supposed to be for. For that, they'll get a commemorative shirt, hear from dynamic speakers like the previous slide indicated, be able to get a journal, which I have showing here, and some of the swag that I passed around the table, a
Nice.
pen and
Do we get to
keychain and
keep
other
that?
things. You certainly do. I don't want to take it
Thank
back to my office. It's sitting in a box and I can get rid of it. Let's move on to the last slide. And that's a video that I'd like for you guys to watch to close out our time. I had to click on it.
He will.
Okay.
Hopefully.
While we have a quiet time, IUP, I'm sorry, the Indiana baseball team won 3-0 against the state champions.
Hey.
Wow,
Moving
good.
on.
Right,
The
thanks
video's
for giving
actually
us that
muted.
news.
Oh, yeah.
If I can have you unmute that, please.
It's important.
Well,
Granted, there's a mute button down in the right-hand corner there on the video
Oh, yeah, I
itself.
want to see this. Start it over.
yeah, that makes it help set the tone there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we go. He muted.
We went to four.
It's,
Do you want the music or you don't want the music?
No, we
We do.
want it.
We want it
Because the music was on previously. That's why I'm asking.
We couldn't hear it up
can't
here.
hear it.
We can't hear one thing.
Is it?
Is it up?
I think we need the volume on that.
Maybe it's up. Oh, my goodness.
Wait a minute, just pause.
Stand by.
Maybe.
I think our value.
Is that right? Just sing
It's-
Oh, maybe that's why we couldn't hear Josie.
Oh, you're on the list now.
I have 3 degrees, but I can't.
Well, we heard
turn the
Randy.
volume up.
That was why. Worst case scenario, if you're not able to
Aw,
hear.
there's Roger.
If you're not able to hear it, we'll make sure that we send you a link to the video so you can watch it. But hopefully it'll play for you.
Randy, I've determined that it's not working.
I
Oh,
think he has to check that, look at
Okay,
that.
there's no speaking. It is just music. So
We wanna hear the
comment on it.
Just speaking
I know-
at the
I know
end.
At the end, it's speaking. So.
Yeah.
I think he needs to-
hey, there's a good looking guy.
I know. Yeah,
Basically, it ends with the
Aw,
affirmation being
sorry.
recited. Oh, no worries. It ends with the affirmation being recited, so
They all recited it.
they all did. 50 people, which is a beautiful thing.
So
That's great.
I'll send it out to the board,
Absolutely.
and we can
Okay,
share
that's a
it.
good idea.
And I will say this, like, I have a small fund that they allow me, the discretionary fund, to spend on whatever I want. So 100% I'll sponsor the kids that are gonna go to this
Appreciate that.
thing. So we'll just work with Wade and Doug and get kids signed up and, any way we can help.
I appreciate
Yeah, I
that.
know we're running over and all that, but you make a good role model for this program as well. But I'm thinking if, Wade, if you or the guidance counselor identify other young male students that would, the students that would need this. And I'm happy that anybody is invited, but I see that this is really important right now. And affirmations definitely work.
Sure.
I used to work, my first job was single parents displaced homemakers. And a lot of those women at IUP were abused. And we did the affirmations and it truly worked. We'd have them put them all around their house even.
Sure.
So doing that and saying that, I just really like that.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it's great.
Also-
Very much needed.
This conference was held on Saturday. if I remember.
Yes,
Is that
Yes,
correct?
it's Saturday, April 20th, before we aim for a Saturday, because it's so hard to plan around the academic calendar, as well as to plan around sports and everything else.
True.
I've already looked at your sports calendar. I know you have a home game the day before, Saturday, October 26th. We have an away game, so that's not some of our football team, but all of our other sports should be around. And it doesn't conflict with homecoming for either of us, I don't believe. And it doesn't conflict with any IUP open houses where we would lose a lot of resources, so.
I was just thinking, going ahead that on a weekday, I don't know if that's possible or not, we have
Yeah.
transportation for our students.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
you'd get more students on a weekday, and I hate to throw that, but I was thinking that same thing. Tell these young men they get to go somewhere and
Sure.
you're gonna get, and once you get them there,
Yeah. what we could consider, and I'm saying this on the fly, I'm gonna offer you something, and then I'm also gonna make this suggestion. What we could consider, because I'm looking for new ways to give my young members opportunities to grow in their leadership. Maybe we have them do a mini conference just for your students if this doesn't get attended well. Because we unfortunately didn't have any IESD students at this past event. I think it was just last minute notice, right?
Right.
So if we find that the attendance is still waning, I think we can definitely put on a mini version of it, but have our students be the presenters if that's something you're open to. But I say let's entertain that thought if this doesn't work. The other thing is I think it would be helpful. I'm not saying you have to do this. You have amazing educators already. I would be willing myself to speak with some of these students. I don't know if there's a specific club. I don't know if there's a way to get these students together, but I'd be willing to talk with them as well, maybe as a teaser for the conference if that's something that you're open to.
I think that would be a good idea, and I would suggest, if not the day before, maybe a week or two before, to generate that interest,
Yeah,
because I think it'd be very helpful,
sure,
because you'd be able to describe it firsthand, its benefits, its value to
sure.
the students.
Or you may be able to get more than just the black and browns, that you may be able to get a
That's my
wider, wider population. In that same spirit, you mentioned that you had a women's leadership.
Yeah.
Coming up. I'd certainly invite you to try to do the same thing for our female students.
Sure.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, date to be determined. I'm still working with the VP of Student Affairs on funding and keynotes and all of that. This being a little bit closer, this is what I offer you today. We actually already have a keynote speaker identified, but until I get a contract signed, I don't want to say anything. But I'm really excited. It's somebody that's very popular in the region. Featured in Good Morning America and all that.
Ooh, stop it.
If we can make that happen, I think that'll be exciting for students. So-
Donna, but do you bring any type of faith in, or since you're at a state university, you're probably not able to do that?
I know what you want to say.
Oh, okay, well, you don't have to say,
Well, no,
because all this stuff that, that's what
Sure.
I'm,
I bring, we all bring our full selves to every experience.
I get you,
I am first a man of God.
right.
I'm son of the Most High before I'm anything else, before I'm the director of student leadership or a husband or any of those other things.
Yes,
So I do
I know
bring
that.
it, but I am respectful of the fact that not everybody would observe my tradition.
right.
So if you go back to our mission, very quickly, it's like the very beginning, you might look and see, it's also on your slide notes. You
Now,
might
we'll
look
look at our
and
slides.
see that there are elements in that while not overt, I think speaks to that importance.
That's,
To
yeah,
recognize your inherent worth. I have a theory as to how you might recognize your inherent worth. And don't tell everybody what that theory is unless the students open that door. And to realize your full potential, I have a theory as to how someone might recognize that.
nice.
So students do come to me about that, but we make sure that if a student is of the Islamic background, or Jewish, or
Right.
atheist, or agnostic, that they still know that they can be welcome and they still
Oh,
can be excellent as well.
Thank you. Well, I'm excited.
That's
Thank
it.
you so much for your time.
As we get closer, I would ask, we may have if you can bill us. Can you
Sure.
bill us for
Sure.
the
I can definitely do
enrollment?
that.
Because that makes our bookkeeping much easier.
I can definitely do that. So, I'm all about booking, so
All right.
thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
On the agenda is our senior high TSI plan.
It's just like been 3 presenters each time.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
Feels right.
It does, it feels right.
And we're like, can we do this sitting down? Like, what's the
Any way you wanna do it.
We're gonna do it.
Problem.
We'll see how sitting goes.
Okay.
Yeah, by all means. I will, Dr. with your permission, I'm going to turn it over to Wade to set the stage here.
Thank you. Next up, our presentation is on our TSI plan, which is known as the Targeted Support and Improvement Plan. And that is based on a few key factors, which our presenters are going to be discussing this evening. With us, we have Ms. Kayla Stewart, special education teacher, Ms. Christy Manning, special education student, Ms. Cassidy Black, one of our ELA teachers.
She's a teacher.
Sometimes you feel
She is a teacher, so she's young, but she is a teacher, not a student.
She's a student of life.
I
apologize. In the back, we have Ms. Courtney Kunzelman, our school psychologist. She was part of our team. And we also have Mr. Johnson, our operational principal, who's part of that team. And we have Ms. Maruka, our special programs coordinator, who was part of that team as well. And you'll see a host of others who were part of this team. And just to give a brief overview, in December or so, we received notice from Pennsylvania Department of Education that we had attained TSI status. And what that means is a particular subgroup within our school, special education students, did not meet the requirements that the state has set forth. And we were given the opportunity, and I say that, you first receive a letter like that, you're like, my goodness, what happened here? But this team did a remarkable job of saying, no, this is instead an opportunity for us to get better. And they worked very diligently through the second semester here and putting together a plan that includes not only stakeholders from our school, but also community members and others who, Dr. Reed was part of that, and also Mr. Adams was part of that as well. So we're able to present a plan that we believe that will not only help our special education students who are not meeting the mark, but all of our low achieving students. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to the team.
Thank you, Wayne, and you were part of that committee as well, and we certainly appreciate that. So we are just going to be as brief as possible, and if you have questions, please ask them at the end. But we don't want to overdo the data and all of that, but sort of give an overview of the plan. So we'll go to the next slide, please. So that's the core team, and not everyone is here tonight, but everyone was certainly a valuable part of the process, and we had a great team. We worked well together, and we represented all content areas. So next slide.
So this is sort of an overview of how did we get on this TSI designation. One was dealing with our achievement in that math and ELA combined. So the next one was looking at our growth scores. We're going to talk a little bit later about what is growth compared to achievement when we're talking about that. And then really probably the one that is most straightforward that I think is an easy fix is that graduation rate. So one thing that we want you to keep in mind whenever you are looking at this graduation rate, and actually you can go to the next slide. Whenever you're looking at this graduation rate, we want to remind the board members that the students that are in this sort of special education umbrella in our district that counted towards this are those in autistic support, those in life skills support, and those in learning support. When we started looking at the numbers of the students that did not graduate, the vast majority were the ones that were exercising their educational right to stay in school beyond that fourth year. Students can stay until they are 21, and this particular year, we had many students that were taking advantage of that. They were behind because of COVID. They were able to stay and get some extra certifications at ICTC. They were able to, build up those academic scores. So truly, whenever we look at that, we are again making progress. You can see our graduation rate is at 82%. We are anticipating that it is getting close to those cut scores. So I think that is naturally going to make its way sort of off our radar. But again, I think as a team, if kids are staying back because they are choosing to, we're okay with that.
Okay, next slide. All right, so this is trying to be a little bit of a simplistic way to look at growth versus achievement. We hear about achievement a lot on the left there. Those are the categories of keystone exams and even PSSAs, I believe. Am I right here? And that's
Yes.
still the same
Yes.
categories.
Yes.
So the below basic up to advanced. So that's achievement. But what targeted school improvement or this TSI designation is based on is growth. And that's their predicted performance based on all their past testing data. So hear teachers talk a lot about PVOS, and what it means to you is just that that's the data on students going back to the first time they've ever been tested. And those projections are pretty accurate on how they should perform on an assessment. And so when we look at a growth number that's like negative 2.86, like what in the world is negative growth? And it just means that they have grown, they may have even met achievement targets, but they fell slightly short of their projected growth. Lots of head nods. Did I nail it? Courtney? Let's jump in. This is great. We're moving on. Next slide. All right, so growth by IEP is the title of this graph. And so this is the subgroup that we are in this designation for, but we wrote the plan for our entire school, but this is the subgroup. And so if you look at the colors there, we have all three of our keystone exams represented there. Algebra in purple, bio is in red, and the literature is in that teal color. And the green line is the growth standard. So you can see on those three different keystone exams, the designation at the bottom of the graph, yes or no. Yes means they have an IEP and no means they don't. And you can see where the growth changes with students without an IEP, but you can also see that in literature, yes, the lack of growth is less if you don't have an IEP, but it's still there, which is why a big part of our plan is school-wide to address some writing, because you can see that literature growth is sort of an issue across the board.
So literature means writing?
It's not all writing, but the constructed response portion of the literature exam is a big area that we have looked at that could have the biggest impact on
That's what your
growth.
weakness is.
Improvement there could have the biggest impact on growth. Yeah.
Do you measure most improved? Can you do that?
Most improved.
In any given student improvement, in any given
We
calendar?
could, yeah, we could. I
That would be
don't-
hard to measure, but it would be interesting.
It's a one-time test. Unless they retake, it's very hard. You're measuring cohorts of students against last year's students. So it's
And we could see who
Difficult.
outperformed their predictive score the best.
yeah,
Exactly.
they're out. Yeah, you compare them to their own prediction.
Is that hard to do?
No, PBAS doesn't force, we just don't typically look at the individual student, but, I mean, not for that purpose. We look at the individual student for lots of things, but not to see who grew the most.
But we'll be using the PVOS site to look at the students who we see that may have a lower projection, possible lower projection for doing well on the test, so we can target those students for assistance.
Okay, next slide. Remembering why we put this in here, but now I see the title. So growth by achievement group, and that just shows another interesting piece there with our literature data is that the lowest and the highest are below the growth standard by almost the same amount.
These are the five. Imagine if we took all the students in the state and divvied them up into groups of 20%, right? The highest quintile is the highest performing in the state. This is the next 20% of high performers in the state, the next highest and the lowest, right? Now, the good news for Indiana is most of our kids fall on this side, which is a plus. That's not represented in this graph. It's hard to see if it was, but the problem is that our lowest students, where most of the lowest quintile students have IEPs because they're trying to overcome a disability, we're not growing the students in the lowest quintile, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, and truly on the other end, our highest students are not achieving to that higher level that is being expected through those PFOS projections. So, really we took this as what can we do for our whole entire student body, not just those that have IEPs. So what's good for them is probably good for everyone.
When you see data like this, and there's consistently a lack of growth, typically we look at the curriculum. That's usually an indicator there's a problem with the curriculum. You can't look at that and say that's a teacher problem. That's not a teacher problem. That's a curricular issue. Something's misaligned. We're not teaching some skill that is critical. We're not doing, so we have to work as a team to identify what curricular changes we're going to make if we're going to turn that around.
This is 9 through 12.
This is the high school, yes. This would be the 10th,
It's
mostly
subject-
10th grader.
subject based.
Yeah, so it's.
There would be, so your focus of students for the literature would be sophomores, because that's typically the year they take this exam. But you may have a few freshmen who took it early, but then you may also have some juniors and seniors who either waited a year or two to take the test or are retaking it. But algebra is what I believe. But again, it depends.
Something that the team did that I thought was most impressive is a lot of our special education data was what led to the TSI. But looking at a graph like this, you can see that there's things that need to be addressed across the curricular level, and the approach that they had taken as a team to identify that as a school-wide opportunity for improvement was something that stood out to me throughout the process. Just want to commend them on that as well.
What percentage retake? You say retake, how frequent? What's the frequency?
Depends on the subject and the literacy.
On literature, I meant literature.
I don't know the percentage, but
Or I guess the
our approach has been for those students who don't score proficient, they'll have intervention for a semester, and at the end of which they'll retest for them. If you look at the achievement numbers, this group of students, achievement-wise, was one of the highest groups of students who hit the mark, which is fantastic. Where we fall short is that PVOS says, okay, that student should be getting a 1523. And our students get 1517. 1500 is the mark. Because the student didn't get 1523, instead got 1517, then we will get results like this for growth. Growth just simply means they didn't get it for this. They didn't get as high as they should have gotten. But as far as proficiency and meeting the mark, we had one of the highest percentage of achievements for
How do they determine what the growth should be?
This is a very complicated secret.
We don't have time for that.
No, we don't have.
It's big data.
Yeah.
Very big data. It is true. So every student who has what's the PPID stand? They're not a social security number, whatever the student number is. That number follows that kid wherever they go to school as long as they're in Pennsylvania, which also means all their academic data follow them. So that is put into a very, very complicated mathematical formula that uses data not only from that kid, but from every other kid in Pennsylvania who has ever taken the PSSA and or Keystone exams. And then it spits out, using a fairly complicated mathematical algorithm, a number that you may or may not agree with, but the number has been vetted repeatedly, and it's not a PDE thing. It's actually, if you're familiar with SAS, that's the company who runs all the data for PDE. So you can question, how valuable is it, but the numbers are very, very technically sound.
Okay, but that chart shouldn't alarm me as much as if it was showing competency. Achievement.
Correct.
Right.
You
So
saw-
Is that the
was
highest,
showing
the
achievement.
highest band with the red
Yeah.
below growth would probably be all students who got advanced on the Keystone exam.
So that'd be an advanced student that didn't do as.
It's the 15, 17.
Shouldn't have advanced the 5
15,
extra
20.
points, which, I don't know much about this, but this is pretty hard to take a kid who's really smart and really doing well and make them just a little bit smarter.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Quick study.
I
But this
wait,
is,
share.
this is an opportunity.
Yeah, no, I
Took a look
understand.
at it and said, you know what, we're gonna do a better job at giving them the better opportunity to do better.
But the bar's not burning down.
No.
Okay. We need to pick up the bottom end, and we need to do a little bit better on the top end. but we're not graduating incompetent children.
Correct.
No.
When we get to
But it's this growth measure, yeah, that
When we get to the data, the very last presentation, then I'll show you that in a different way that will illustrate it just maybe a little bit easier to interpret than that.
Okay, I think we're ready for that kind of the slide that's really kind of summing up our plan. So these are, for this plan, we needed to come up with some action steps. So these were really the 3 areas that we are focusing in on for our plan next year. We are making, some changes that are in a much lengthier document, but for your information, we are going to be working through in all content areas, working on those constructive responses. No matter what course the kids are taking, they need to be exposed to this, showing them, how to write to a response, practice that, build up the just the stamina for writing. We do genuinely think that is a big concern. The literature keystone exams, I know most of you have not seen them in here, but they are heavy on reading and there is a lot of writing prompts. So we're working on building that stamina. The second one for the graduation rate is, we're continuing on to our second year of PBIS across the school environment. We do anticipate those students that maybe were dropping out for other reasons outside of just choosing to stay an additional year. We're hoping to reach them to reduce that, or I guess improve that graduation rate. And then we are focusing in on one particular program for math to help improve some of those growth scores as well, because it's a combined score with the math and the English, is sort of where we're looking at that growth.
And PBIS is positive behavior intervention and supports. And that's like, you've heard us talk about that at the elementary schools for many, many years. We've been building that up to the high school. It's difficult to implement at the high school, but the principle is still the same. And that is, we identify the behaviors that are getting in the way of success and we explicitly teach to those behaviors. So attendance is a big one at the high school. Our attendance is something we're going to have to address as a community. Our attendance is poor across the board, and that gets in the way of academic growth and academic success. So that's something I can envision the high school team really focusing in on and trying to explicitly teach and then acknowledge those who are showing improvement and try to build some momentum toward that positive behavior and consistent expectations from classroom to classroom to classroom for those kinds of behaviors and improvements. So it's a lot of work, but I believe that they can do it.
What is IXL?
IXL, I don't know what IXL stands for, but it's a program. It's an independent practice program that levels the question in math. So the more you get right, the harder they get. The less, if you get one wrong, it lowers it down a little bit. So when you're doing independent practice, you can have many, many different students with many, many different issues, practicing at an appropriate level at the same time.
On your first point there, you're going to need to be able to support the teachers that have weaker English skills.
correct.
And I talked from firsthand experience when I was at the university, which I did teach at the university. They had English across the curriculum.
Right.
And I was teaching design. And the last person you want in the room teaching English is me. So you need to get support to those teachers that are challenged on that. And I'm not picking on the teachers that don't have a strong English, but they have other specialties.
Well, we have to approach it, and I thank this group tremendously for promoting the growth mindset. Just because you don't have it, doesn't mean you won't have it yet.
And you're absolutely right. We made some staffing decisions this past year based on putting some people in the social studies department that are going to help us with the English part of that, the reading and writing in the content area. So
Yeah, but I'm also thinking of some of your requirements.
sure.
Number one is going to apply to your PE classes, your health classes, and they didn't take a lot of English classes.
And one way that we're approaching it too is not every teacher and every curriculum has to grade it the exact same way. Teachers have the freedom of grading that response in the way that they feel would best fit their class. And one thing we talked about was the English department. We can give that helping hand to our colleagues in other departments who aren't as familiar with working on things like this.
And it's about promoting subject area literacy, because each subject area may have different ways of communicating, expressing, writing that's inherent to learning that subject area.
I don't know if IUPs, if they still have the writing across the curriculum.
That was 100 years ago.
Class.
Yes.
Do they still have it, Lisa?
Oh, yes, it's fully executed at this point. Everyone should have a writing across the curriculum.
It's one of the reasons I retired.
I mean, the actual course. There was a course that professional studies used to teach.
Actually, writing intensives as a matter of course are going away.
Right.
And writing is programs need to demonstrate how they are addressing writing across the curriculum, across their entire major.
Yeah, I knew that, that's what's happening.
Yeah, but more and more of the writing intensive courses are not sustaining as writing intensive, in part because it puts a huge load on particular faculty members to teach those writing intensives. There's no incentive really to teach those. Plus, it assumes that taking just two writing intensive courses across your 4 years of a bachelor's degree somehow makes you writing proficient, and more specifically, writing proficient in your major, which is definitely not the case. So writing is deemed part of your major portion.
Well, I know our literacy department had a course called Writing Across the Curriculum, that people who were getting their reading specialist masters in literacy had to take that particular course, and it taught them how to teach writing across the curriculum. So that's more what I was thinking, not as, I'm thinking of a
More
course.
specifically in education.
Correct, an education
Yeah.
course, which I don't know if that would benefit any of the teachers to have, like a workshop
But
or
our plan
a
is
course.
going to include some professional development for our teachers in the October in-service day, and really just like allowing, with like the help of Cassidy and our English teachers, some general guidelines on writing constructed response prompts, but letting our health and PE teachers all work together. And what are some good prompts that would be in the health curriculum? And what are some good prompts that would support the physical science and the physics and all the different science courses? So letting the teachers work together and come up with good prompts to get students writing. And, you know, we all said, even if they don't grade them, they're building the stamina for writing by having these assignments and by having students maybe do peer review and take a look at someone's writing and give each other feedback. This doesn't have to be an assessment like everything you write for an English class would be. So that's part of the pitch to the teachers, is that this can look a lot different. This can involve student feedback to each other. This can look a way that builds that writing stamina, supports literacy in the content areas, and I think all teachers will be comfortable with the process.
I like that.
Yeah, I think that's the last slide. There is a lengthier document that you guys will need to read to you right now. As a school board needs to be approved, and that is our final step in this TSI, is board approval, and then we upload that, and then this our kind of TSI team first initial job is done. So.
And I just have to say, our special education teacher, Mrs. Christy Manning, Ms. Kalis, they are our school facilitators of this plan. So looking forward to continuing this great work that they have done. Cassie's been a tremendous help, including her input insights. So we're looking forward to the opportunities to help our students grow in their life.
Is this a motion on the board?
We have to.
It has to be sometime between now and September 1. So probably next Monday, if not, it'll be the 24th.
All good?
All good?
Good.
Okay.
Thank you guys.
I videoed it a couple times and put it on my Facebook. Yeah, she's amazing.
Yeah, that's it.
Sarah, are you presenting for Tracy?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
What did she say?
Family issues.
Yeah, I heard.
Who's
Yeah.
that?
That's funny.
Family issues, Tracy.
Yep, I mean, it's up next.
I can do it. I got it.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Yeah. Mrs. Bacor is wanting to begin this program, and I'll explain it in a few seconds here, but I just want to apologize on her behalf. There's a lot of things going on in her family right now, and there's some issues with her husband's health that she's attending to, and that's why she's not here. So she's one of our school nurses at the junior high, Eisenhower, and Horseman.
Okay.
So she does the 3
People
buildings.
know her that have
Yeah.
kids in school.
So she's sorry she couldn't be here this evening. And on her behalf, there's a program called the Healthy Champions Program. It's sponsored by Penn State Pro Wellness. The Healthy Championship Program is a free initiative that assists school health leaders with fostering environments that supports children's health and well-being. So this is something that she's been a part of for other years at other schools that she has been at. Basically, it is a partnership between Penn State's Pro Wellness Program and Giant, which we know as Martin's around here. And basically, it provides enrolled schools, and they call their enrolled schools champions, with free health education materials at the beginning of the school year. And then the champions of the schools are encouraged to use these materials and additional resources, which can be found in the portal, which Randy has up there for us, to host signature events to help teach youth and families about how to be healthier and make healthier life choices. If we enroll, she would like to start with at least enrolling Eisenhower, Horseman, and the junior high, because those are the 3 that she is, and then be able to bring it to the other nurses, hopefully, in the future after we see how it works. Basically, a personalized STAR score report, which just tells us about how healthy habits are. It's like the nurse assesses like what kind of healthy habits the kids have, those kinds of things. They will mail an all-star kit that starts at the 24-25 school year. That includes an infographic poster that we can put up in the building, signature event posters. And these signature events can be things like, at the open house, talking about having, instead of cookies, having healthy snacks, stuff like that. I mean, it can be very basic. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate, or you can take it as elaborate if you want and have like a health fair. It's up to the school or the nurse or the family. A Healthy Champion certificate. She also would receive exclusive access to the web portal so she can gain resources. And there is an opportunity for financial and technical support for signature events. So there is some funding that we could possibly get to help if we decide to do a signature event at one of the schools or all of the schools, so that we can have it. Again, it's nothing to the school. It's a lot of resources. And we just really, what she would like is just permission to sign up for it, to see what all it has to involve, and then move forward with it as she or the principals of the school see fit.
Anybody?
I saw, did you review it?
I did.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good thing.
Yeah, it looked good.
So she'll run it as a pilot.
Yeah, we'll run it as a pilot, and then if we, see how it does,
Then
check out the resources for sure, because again, we've only looked like you guys did on the surface and things like that, see what they send us, see what they're requiring and stuff like that, because always, until you try it, you never know for sure.
But you said it's free,
It
right?
is free, it doesn't cost us anything, and there's a possibility they even give us a little bit of funding, so that's always good.
Eisenhower, Horseman, and
Junior high,
Junior high.
yeah, those are the 3 schools that she's the certified school nurse for.
I
She
see,
would
okay.
kind of pilot it there and see.
Right, and then her and I would be willing to report at the end of the school year and, say, hey, this was really worth it and this is what they gave us, or, it was nice, we got a lot of nice resources, but really,
I'd like to thank her for going up above and beyond what she has to do on a.
Looking for resources.
yeah, this was something that she brought to us, so I really give Tracy a lot of credit, because she did find this on her own, and it's something that could benefit our students.
On the agenda?
On the agenda, yes, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome. She would have done a better job than me. She would have had to be.
Please tell her she's in our thoughts.
But you're
I will.
quick.
I try,
Yeah.
All right, next on the agenda is our ESL presentation, a curriculum revision.
So before they get started, I just wanted to just introduce them. We have had 2 major curriculum adoptions this year, one being science that we heard about at the last academic meeting. We have a couple items on the agenda for that. The other one was ESL. This one will be a little bit different in that there's not necessarily planned course of instruction sheets that accompany the ESL subject, because of what they do is a lot more individualized than science would be. But I can't say enough good things about the people that we have here today. Beth, Janelle, Kate, Katie, they have done such a phenomenal job in getting this prepared. They put together a great presentation. So although it's not planned course of instruction sheets, and you won't be reviewing those like I put on the agenda for science, they have put together a presentation, and they have some asks, all relatively, actually not relatively, but they're all included into our curriculum budget. So everything that they would be asking for, we can manage to handle through our curriculum funds. With that,
Can they introduce themselves?
absolutely.
You certainly will. Are you in charge of our slide?
I am not. You just have to say next slide, and the magic man behind the scenes will take care of it.
I just reviewed the whole time.
If you
And
introduce
it's to
yourself.
Randy, yes, I'm Beth Murphy.
Janelle Dongilla, and Katie Kent.
So Randy, can you do the next slide? Is it actually Randy?
Yes.
It is right.
So we had a couple of objectives, which was one to introduce ourselves and we'll explain sort of what buildings we're in and that kind of thing. Our student demographics and what our program's all about, providing you about some of the changes that we've learned about for developing the ESL curriculum, which our minds were blown and we're very excited about. And then justifying our purchases at this point, because our curriculum is not written yet, justifying the purchases for our newcomers, which is a population of our students that's kind of been not neglected, but we're sort of piecemealing what we're doing. We'd like to see more continuity between the grade levels. Next slide. So these are, this is us. Oh, that's a show. Janelle is halftime ELA and ESL at the junior and senior high. Katie's halftime ESL and PE at Ike and East Pike. Melanie Popson is not with us tonight, but she's a key part of our team. She covers horseman, but she wears a lot of hats.
Yes.
And then I'm the only full-time person who's just doing ESL. And that, we went from 3 full-time people starting about 2019, and then we kind of went to this division. So,
Probably evolve next year as well.
yeah, it's everything.
Yes. There'll be some changes.
Next slide? Yes, next slide.
So we wanted to talk about language. There's a certain discourse that changes with curriculum, with people, with students. We want to be more inclusive. WIDA, which is the consortium we belong to, we pay to be part of that. And it's, the professional development, everything that comes from WIDA is really good stuff. The language that they use is multilingual learners. That's kind of when we're talking about broadly speaking, they're students who come in contact with or interact with languages that are in addition to or beside or other than English. So multilingual learners, a huge umbrella. Pennsylvania or PDE uses EL, which is English learner. I think federal is English language learner. Just as, I guess our point in putting this slide is that we should always be using inclusive language. Even our department name has changed. We have gone from ESL to ESOL, and then now if we're seeing in these conferences and other interaction with other schools, and also the push for everyone to be an English language development teachers is ELD. So they're asking, what are your ELD classes like? And we're still kind of stuck in that ESL. So just kind of be cognizant that, it's not language, English language, limited English language proficient. That was one of our older terms. So it's more inclusive, it's more asset-based.
I think
You
when
can
I
look
took
up
the
a gloss,
classes, when I took the classes, that's what it was, back in 2000, I think, when I got mine.
Yeah, there's been a lot of changes we love acronyms, in education in general, so. Next slide, please.
And so we included this slide so you could see a little bit about our students. And so currently there are over 19 languages spoken by our students. Some of the most common languages spoken we have a lot of students speaking Arabic,
And Persian and Dari are also on the rise because we have a lot of students, refugees coming to our area, and Haitian Creole is also on the rise.
And we don't have Spanish on there, but we've got Spanish because. It's not really, usually it's not a high number, this year not particularly.
That's where you say over 19.
Yeah, it's over 19.
Yes.
We should have
And
plus.
and it is, every year it's different, so we do have even more than this that have been a part of our district. Next slide. And so we wanted to put on a map so you could kind of see where our students are coming from. And it's, many countries are represented all over the world. It's also neat to see how many students are born in the United States but still enter our programs because they're coming from a multilingual background with their families. Next slide. And so for a student to enter our program, it doesn't happen like automatically. There's a process that we follow. It's outlined by PDE, and it starts with our home language surveys. So every student that enters our district, their families or guardians complete a home language survey, and that kind of sets off an alarm that we might need to interview a family. So if any other language is indicated on that home language survey, then Janelle, Beth, or I would interview the parents or guardians. That again is a form that we get from PDE, and it's very rare for a student not like through that interview not to then progress to the next step, which would be screening. But typically through that interview process, we do roll out things like parents completed and said that Spanish, their child speaks Spanish, but they're really just learning it through Duolingo or they're taking a class on Rosetta Stone. So we kind of can roll some of that out through a parent interview. Then we would screen a student. This is an online assessment that we use. Every year we recertify to evaluate and interpret the results of that screener. And then from that screener, we determine if they're entering our program or if they're just a student that we're monitoring. And then that also helps us determine how many hours of instruction they would need from us in our program.
Next slide, please. So based on how that screener, the score from that screener determines the number of hours per week that a student receives in ELD or ESOL or ESL instruction. So that just encapsulates that instructional time. Next slide, please. And we did a little bit of putting together why that's so important, why the instructional time is so important. So, the more time and the sooner that a student acquires English at the grade level in which they're in, right, that's going to help them exit faster, which is our goal, really, is to exit students. And therefore, less time in ESL gives the opposite effect. And we found this bit of data about what happens if they don't get the recommended number of hours. They do poorly in the content areas, have low test scores like on PSSAs and Keystones. They often do not exit. We've had, we haven't had a lot of students who have been in ESL for a long time, do not exit or reclassify out of ESL at all, or are Ls all the way from K to 12. So the hours that are actually identified are considered a minimum time. But what the research also says that if we put a student in with more hours upfront when they're beginners in the younger grades, and they don't always come in the younger grades, but if that, when that happens, that's going to increase their likelihood of exiting by 4th or 5th grade, for example, if they start in kindergarten. Next slide, please.
I want to thank
Mr. Zohorchik for kind of giving us that intro. Our curriculum is not a scope and sequence because, and I'm glad it was touched on earlier, we focus on the language uses. We don't teach content. We do, but we teach the language of social studies, the language of science, the language of even social instructional learning. So our curriculum is based on those 4 language uses. And what's really interesting about, you know, the kind of, at least the worlds that we are in, is that literacy is being accepted as not just cross-curricular, but it's also moving to secondary too. So because I'm at the junior and senior high, those literacy practices, I don't get that systemic, okay, let's start with phonemic awareness and the science of reading and all our letter sounds, and then we move up to multisyllabic words. I might have a student who might be reading something, but they're missing the short I and E sounds. So how do I go from, a 5th grade, then we're doing short vowel sounds. So what this does is it thinks about it in this non-sequential this way. And I think that Canyon School District, who our ELA team is looking at as part of the MTSS stuff that's going on, they are actually recognizing the 3 language uses in here. I think they have argue, narrate, and they combine, inform, and explain. So they even, this exemplar curriculum is recognizing that language uses are across discipline. That's our job. We're teaching the language of fill in the blank. And so it also it encourages us also to rewrite our curriculum so that it's not just, okay, we're following these textbooks, we're teaching reading, we're teaching writing, vocab, and isolation. It is requiring us to have a more global sense of what the language is needed for them to academically succeed in their language, ELA, science, social studies, et cetera. So it's this increased emphasis.
Can I ask you a question? When you talk about the practical side of it, do you use any gaming tools? I didn't see anything about that, because all of that is, kind of a standard debate.
Gaming tools? You mean like GimKit and Kahoot?
Well, no, just games. I mean, so if you're starting out in debate or something, and you could be teaching it within your your people with English as a second language, you can say to them, here's the issue today.
Yeah, that would be like a lesson plan based thing.
Yeah, so
Right.
it's sort of a game, and then everybody gets to score points. I don't know how else you learn that, but if you try to learn it out of a textbook, I can't imagine.
The argue?
Oh, any second grader on the planet is going to argue. I'm just kidding. But we would do it in a variety of ways, but we're not even at the lesson plan.
Yeah, we're bigger picture.
Right now we're at the very beginning of curriculum development.
Yeah, so we learned in second grade, I remember, was it right for George Washington to cut down the cherry tree?
Oh, right.
And you gotta have teams. You gotta come up with why that one, so I said why it wasn't a good thing. So you had to kind of learn that you just did it. You did all of the steps and you learned the language to do it, so.
But ours is even more, there's certain steps. There's the linguistic level. There's the discourse of argue. We have to teach them sentence stems like, I agree, but. I mean, it's very.
So it's granular.
Yeah, it's granular. And actually, can you go to the next slide, please? Within these, it's kind of at the language expectations. Okay. That's where those are at. It's what language functions do they need to use to argue? What language functions do they need to use to explain?
What forms do that?
And so you might be talking about cause and effect. And so I might have this and that, this, so this, consequently. And that is in history, ELA, social study. So those language, they're called expectations. Those are within each of those. So if you think about, am I answering your question there?
Yeah, I'm getting a better sense of what you're doing, but I think practice makes perfect. So if you learn gum causes cavities, that's.
And those should be displayed, this is my content objective is say arguing gum disease. The language objective is blank causes blank. So yes, and you're teaching subject verb agreement there, this caused this or this causes this. So you're hitting a bunch of, check boxes there, I guess.
Are you doing this on an individual basis?
Yeah.
One-on-one or
No, we have
3 or 4 or 5?
We might have group 1, group 2, group 3.
And different
and we have to
languages.
differentiate, yeah.
I don't know how you do it.
It's interesting. It's very interesting.
You should come and see. It's
Yeah,
very interesting.
it is.
Yeah.
It works too.
So that's kind of whereas ELA, I'll use that as an example, might say, here's the standard. We have reading, writing, speaking, listening for ELA. And then within those, let's say reading is identify the main idea, and write an objective summary. And then it ends there. That's my standard. That's what I put in my lesson plan. For ELD, our language is like embedded within this. So we have our ELD standard statements. That means language of social studies, social, science, ELA. And then within that, our language uses, inform, argue, the four. And then the language expectations is, what are they expressing? What are they writing and speaking? What are they interpreting, reading and listening? And then within those, what are they expected to do? So are they expected to write a narrative, using whatever language, using sequence, words, blah, blah, blah. So it goes boom, 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 boom. And then that was your question at the lesson plan level. That's where that middle one is. And that's where we differentiate. So a newcomer isn't going to talk to you about like the cause and effect of the Punic Wars, but like a developer might be able to. So that's where we can use this, them, that, but in those two different language proficiencies. Does that make
watch
sense?
Sesame Street? That's how so many people learn to speak English from them. They watch Sesame Street. They do. I've known many people who, a friend from Spain who came over, he's 30 when he came over, and he just sat in a hotel room and watched Sesame Street for hours on end until he started
It's
to
the
get it.
repetition and it's the comprehensible input. You're getting this visually, orally, it's tactilely.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
I think.
Next slide, please. Oh, this is with the WIDA access test. We give this test annually in January, February. Every student who's currently enrolled in ESL takes it, or if the student has opted out. If a family opts a student out of ESL, which is their right, they still have to take the annual test, even though they're not receiving direct instruction from their ESL teacher. It tests them on the four domains. Kindergarten test looks a little differently. Everybody else is online, an online assessment. We do have the flexibility to give it paper pencil if we thought a student would be more successful with that mode, but typically we give it online. Next slide, please.
After students complete that test, we receive a score report, and we typically get it about this time of year. And then we use that to determine if the student continues to be a current student in our program or a student that has been reclassified. And so when they reclassify, there are two different levels. There's like the we call it like M1 or Monitor 1. And so for the 2 years following exiting, they are monitored by us, the ESOL teams. Their classroom teachers, and just keep track of how they're doing and see if they need any extra support. But for a student to reach the level that they're being considered for reclassification, they have to score a minimum of a 4.5. But that doesn't always mean that they will be reclassified, because that just earns them if you see a certain amount of points on that scale. And so like a 4.5 would earn them a 3.6. And then in addition to that, they complete, the classroom teacher and the ESOL teacher completes a rubric that we total up those scores and see if they have scored high enough to exit or be reclassified from the program.
Next slide, please.
Okay, so here's our ask. Do you have any questions about the score reports that are going around?
Or ESL in general.
Their score reports are really interesting because people's eyes go right to the overall score and they're like, oh, they have a 4.5, they're good.
But what we try to teach our fellow teachers is that look at the listening. Typically, historically, our students have scored really high in listening. So that's a receptive skill. Like it's a little bit, I'm generalizing here, but it's a little easier than the expressive skills like writing and speaking. And so when we ask our teachers to look at those things, say, okay, if they're a good listener, you can give them oral directions. But if maybe they're not a good writer, so they would need more scaffolds in their writing. So it's kind of, that's what's important there. I'm going to share with you two things that really need updated. These are for K through 5. These are what we use for our newcomers. They're the Oxford Picture Dictionaries, and it's just lots of pictures. This is like a it's like a visual dictionary, okay? And we usually start with lessons 1 through 10 are the most current because we're learning about school items, the community, people, family, and then we go into our content areas. Mine is a little bit separated because then I have other worksheets that teach grammar, vocabulary, etc. Whereas K through 5 is more integrated.
Yeah, it's more embedded in the.
And it's really lovely. It's like this. So we are asking for that upgrade. So this is what you see for the K through 3 and the prices. We tried to go down as much as possible. Like for example, there are 2 free teacher editions online. We didn't ask for the $70 teacher manual so that we could have a digital. But this is the first slide, and then the second slide is for mine. So total cost is $416 for materials for K through 3, and then the next, or is that K through 5? I'm sorry, that might be K through 5. And then Randy, if you'll go to the next slide, that would be for junior, senior high. So you'll even see there's a new cover. There's a new cover, and there's some digital stuff in there too.
Really see?
Yes. That's junior, senior high with this stuff. And then this is the K through 5, I guess. Yeah, you guys want to look at this.
Next slide, please. Or do we need to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, if you all have access, so I won't belabor if you want to look at our justification. We have justification slides after each of our materials. Next slide.
Janelle had mentioned, sometimes we'll get a junior, senior high student who might be able to read in their first language or another language other than English, but struggling with short vowels or struggling with multisyllabic words. We found this program this series of books from Sadlier, and it starts out with alphabet and goes up to the top level. Through word study and advancing reading success. We discovered that it wasn't too juvenile for some of the older kids, but it also is really meant for elementary kids. And it's hard to find things for the junior and senior high kids that don't look, like a picture book. And so we talked to the Sadlier representative and felt that these materials were a good addition for that reading part of ESL.
And it's modular. So let's say I have a group that will start at module 7 because they're pretty good with these.
Well, and they test in, so we'll know exactly what level they need to start with.
Thank you.
Sure. Next slide, please. That's really tiny. So
We did get this.
this provides a lot of the background as to, connecting L's with the science of reading and why it's important. And I mean, the big statement overall is that it is module based and that there's a diagnostic placement, which is very helpful. And it helps to pinpoint those learning gaps. That's what their program is promising us. And then we can give that very corrective instruction to students. We were mostly thinking of the older students because K-2 right now, we have skills, which is the phonics piece of CKLA. So we might use this at the elementary level, but this was more geared towards older students who are struggling with the phonics and spelling patterns of English.
Yeah, but What if you have a dyslexic kid who's also in ESL? I mean, doing
Yeah, we've
word
had that.
puzzles,
Yeah.
that's miserable.
Yeah, we've had that.
It's all here. It's not.
We've had that case and we get a reading specialist involved and ask for their input and suggestions.
And people who reverse numbers, you can test that.
I mean, dyslexia is kind of a big, maybe hard to talk about that, like it's a big umbrella. But, yeah, I mean, in the younger grades, reversals are common. If they continue on and it starts impeding like a math skill or, then yeah, that would be something different. I'm stepping out of my expert
That's
zone,
okay.
just what I've seen.
I just don't see, do they resent the workbooks? Or do they like these workbooks?
The older kids or elementary?
Yeah, I'm talking about the younger kid.
Oh my gosh, that's just the backbone. I mean, I supplement with Newsella articles and like games, and this is just, we needed something that was like systemic, basically. You know, systematically teaching something, I can start at point A, point C, point D, and then we fulfill like that. There's content I have for the newcomer. I have a Google Classroom that's loaded with like topic 1 is just the classroom stuff. There's games, there's stuff to read, like it all needs enriched, you know, there's TPR stuff that we do. You know, can I have 5 pencils? You know, and they have to grab 5 pencils. And this is, even though you're teaching this to maybe a newcomer in high school, they're still getting it. You know, there might be 1 or 2 newcomers and my other students in the class might be doing something else. Same thing here. I mean, you might have 2 or 3 kids who they're having fun doing that because they can hear it, there's receptive, there's a lot going on at one time. It's not just the workbooks, never just the workbooks.
They don't present it because it's accessible to them. It's something that they can accomplish and do typically at home independently and get that extra practice. So.
We didn't really spotlight the demographics of some of our students, but in more recent years, like in the past, we've sort of been known as the university, we have the university kids. That's not as much the demographic as it used to be. We're having students from, refugees from Afghanistan, from Haiti that you've already mentioned. We're also seeing students with, or potentially with, learning disabilities. I've got kids who also receive speech services. Like, it's really a whole, students who've had traumatic life experiences. Like, it's and that was just a few short years ago that most of our students were university kids, and that's not as much the case anymore. Which just makes, just means we need to respond to that, right?
So you all are really fluid. You're fluid throughout the day.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
We
We're
wear
many
many
hats.
hats. Fluid's a new word.
Yes.
Now, are you the only 3 teachers that teach this?
Other than Melanie Popson.
Oh, and Melanie, right.
But, for our course man population, but it's a two students, I think, at this point, yeah.
But you're the only 4 in the district.
Correct.
Yes, and next year Melanie will not be teaching ESL, so that will be the 3.
Okay.
And Katie won't be teaching phys ed next year, so.
And you don't know approximately this past year, and I don't want to put you on the spot, so please don't think I'm doing that, approximately how many students you did have?
I knew someone was gonna ask
I'm
that.
so sorry.
Well, there's
No,
4
no,
types
no.
of students that we have. I mean, my caseload might be 50, okay? But I
Okay,
have floats who, that means they're in our paperwork, but we never see them. That means their primary home language is other than English. So they were tested along the way, or maybe they had ESL.
I
but
see,
we're-
right.
But then we have people who are monitored, which means they exit our program, but we still need to keep track of them.
Mhm.
There are students who are opted out. I see this a lot at the high school. They're like, oh, I don't want to go to the junior high. You know, they're like, I feel okay, I can survive. So they're opt-out kids.
Right.
And then there are the people who we actively teach who are have an ESL in their schedule. So asking that question is not always an easy answer.
I'm sorry.
No, it's good. I'm glad that someone asked it.
But for kids, like, for example, kids in our classroom, in terms of a day-to-day caseload, I started the year with 27. So, and then it changes through the year, up and down. Kids leave, kids come. Yeah. So if that gives you a picture,
Right,
that's
right.
two buildings, in 2 buildings.
It'll probably increase next year, every year.
So,
Well, that's almost out of 100, 800 students. You're in East Pike and Eisenhower?
no, Ben Franklin, and the majority of those 27 were at Ben Franklin.
Okay, but that's out of almost 600 students.
For,
400.
BF has about 425, I think, something like that. And again, that doesn't include the floats and the monitors.
Yeah, no, I
and all
understand.
that.
Yeah, these are the ones that haven't that truly need help. Okay, these are
These are kids that are, yeah,
Yeah, these are kids that are
who are
just
getting direct
parachuted in.
instruction, yeah.
Yeah, okay. But that's still
Just sizable.
that's still one
It's
out
been
of
highly informative.
Good. I think we have one more.
One more
ask.
One more ask.
So.
I'm already on thank you.
Thank you. Can we say thank you?
Can you advance to the next slide? So the last resource we're asking for is a vocabulary workshop, and it is explicit instruction in vocabulary. And we do, we believe in authentic instruction and including it and all of everything that we do. But this is a nice nice resource. Probably like the red and the purple will be more like the lower elementary, but it's all picture based, this red book, and so it's a lot of great vocabulary, but it's taught through pictures, so it's wonderful. And then we progress up through different levels, but the students really enjoy it, and again, it's giving them some more vocabulary to express themselves, and it's taught in a nice, easy way. It has an online component that goes along with it. And the kids like that too. And it gives them an extra opportunity to practice some of the vocabulary. So we really enjoy it, but I can pass that around.
Okay, any questions from the committee?
You have about $4,500 worth of ask. How much of this is this $4,500 every year, or is it? This is not all consumable.
Only the student editions would be, you might have to order.
Okay, and that's just a few $100. Is the equipment by solid. That's for you.
We believe it'd be
Unless
great
there's a
value.
work that
Yeah.
is already budgeted for in the curriculum budget, so.
And we might have a year that we don't need any materials because maybe our newcomer supply is good and we don't, because this is literally we're just thinking about newcomers right now before we write the full curriculum.
Oh, so you're
And next
using
year we
as
come
the-
back.
I'm happy to see I thought one book was 2012, I think, so it's definitely
Right.
time to update.
Yeah.
Then the other one was 2025, so
Right.
that's one that's just not coming out, so
Right.
it's definitely time if you're using 2012 material, it's time to.
Thanks for noticing that.
Yeah.
I always look at the copyrights, curriculum.
Right. And we've historically used the OPD materials, for a wide range of students, and they've been kind of a good resource. But we've run out of those, or they become outdated.
Is this something we're just doing for 1 year, or is this something that, are they coming back next year for a more expanded?
Yeah, this would be, they're up this year for new items. So we'll get those items approved at the next board meeting. And then from there, it's really just those conversations that they have with me and, but not an official like curriculum re-up.
Yeah, you're a lot more reasonable than science curriculum.
And we, through our curriculum process next year, we, just like the senior high teachers were talking about, meeting with other teachers, that's what we need to do to find out maybe even what more materials we need to support what they're already doing in the content areas. So like CKLA, we already have, there's things we already have. So maybe our ask next year won't be that big. Or maybe it will.
That's good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your attention.
Good luck with it.
Next up is the science curriculum approval.
Dr. Rick, if you're okay with it, I'll take 7 and 8 together because they're both relatively quick. So number 7, science curriculum approval. I have attached onto the agenda the actual folders for the planned instruction sheets. We're just putting those on for approval at our next board meeting on next Monday. And then the other one is number 8. I had links on there initially, so if you saw them, those were incorrect. I had 2 of them that included professional development into it, and I'm getting new quotes. I'll have those updated and onto the agenda before we meet on Monday, so you'll have an idea of what. So there's Inspire, there's Mystery Science, and then there's Carolina Science. I'll have all those quotes up and ready to go before the next board meeting. You can take a look at those, and we'll put those up for approval.
When I click on science curriculum, I'm told I need access, permission.
We'll change the access.
Yeah, that would be.
Yeah, Rob, I think. ran the
Yeah, for some
access
reason,
on
it's
this
something
too,
weird,
but
like,
I
because I
requested.
own the original folder that they were.
Oh, yeah, so just one excuse after another.
When did you request it? Did you click request?
I did not.
Click request, and then I'll be able to.
Okay.
They do that to see who reads it.
That's a good idea.
I always forget. I forget until you tell me, and then
I didn't read that one, so I didn't ask.
That's a good idea, but no, it's just you forget to click a button one
It says I'm
time.
gonna get an email someday in the future.
So,
All right, anything else?
with, yeah, nope.
No, that's it.
All right.
With your permission, I would ask that we let Miss Jenna Chaycott go.
Oh,
Before
she has
she's-
little-
Come on.
She has little boy.
She's one of our last presenters, and all the rest of it, I think, are mine, so I would,
That's a great idea.
That is a great idea.
so she can go home. So Jenna recently went on sabbatical and requested permission to present some of her experience to the board, which is a nice idea. And I'm kind of surprised that actually I look back and I was surprised that we don't have this as a standard operating practice. And I think we're going to start. I think if we go on sabbatical, I think we should share what that experience with the board and the community. So.
Thank you so much. So my name is Jenna Chaycott. I currently work at the junior high as a family consumer science teacher, which I am very, very passionate about this topic, as Dr. McCumbee knows, as she was my teacher for many years. And family consumer science covers a lot of different topics. So it's really important that we stay current the best that we can in all of these topics. So whether it's child development, communications, finance, foods, textiles, the list goes on what we teach. So I think it's really important that we continue our education the best that we can, as much as that we can. That's like awkward to tell him. So can you change the slide?
There you are.
Okay, so I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to continue my education through IUP. I chose to go to IUP Culinary School. This is Chef Reed, who's accompanied me today from IUP to also help me answer some questions today. So thank you for the opportunity, to continue my education. This is really important. And I chose this program. I'm very passionate about this program. I've been taking trainings with them for many years. But they're in the transition of changing their program from a 1-year program where you really all day, every day go to a 2.5-year program. So this was my last opportunity to take advantage of this program. And that's kind of what pushed myself this direction. It is a bachelor level program. It is not master's level. There is not a master's level program locally, certainly anywhere within a driving distance. I know that Penn State has a food science program, but I'm not willing to drive to Penn State every day. So this is the best program, and they are an accredited program. So being that it's a bachelor level program, I did pay for this program myself, and I am not going to move up the tier salary wise for that. And I think that's important to tell you, because that's how important it was for me to have this education and to have this education for my students, because it's a great opportunity that IUP has this program. So next slide, please. Okay, so you can see so far, I've already completed 10 classes through IUP. And I want to thank IUP specifically for working with me. So we sat down a year in advance and we talked about what classes should I take, which classes would be best for my students, what classes do I already have kind of knowledge in, and where can I go with this. So I didn't just take classes through the culinary school, I also took classes through the baking and pastry school. So while other students might be taking a computer class, which I probably am certified to teach, I would then jump over to a different program and take classes instead. So I'm really thankful to Chef Reedy, Chef Pike, and all of the other professors at IUP for working with me to create a plan for that. So thank you so much. I do want to explain that classes are a little different here. So they are in person. They are every day. They are 15 days straight. You go all day for 15 days, and then you move on to the next course. And it is in the order that they provide those courses. So I hope that explains that it's a pretty rigorous, quick program. Those classes are either from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. or they are from 11:30 to 4:30, and that's the majority of the classes I took were the 11:30 to 4:30 every day. So it's important to me that I am providing an education that helps our students be career ready and also self-sufficient. So those are like the two areas really this focus is on. So next slide, please. So at this point, I've completed 705 clock hours on my academic transcripts, of course, earning A's, I would hope so, but it's important. It was a stressful time getting those A's. So I have completed that. Of course, that does not include practicing for practicals at night, for hours, getting ready for practicals, getting ready for tests, which happen weekly, or any of the other time spent. This is just clock hours in class. I am going to continue these hours this summer and continue with classes this summer. So next slide, wherever Randy is in the room. All right, Randy, we might have to do a little clicking here. I thought it was going to be exciting and click for you, but thanks for clicking for me here. Beyond the 705 hours, I took every opportunity that IUP would give me to continue my education, anything that I thought that I could better our students here in Indiana School District. So the first one was competing with some strong encouragement from Chef Reed in a cookie competition for the local HCF Groundhog chapter. I did win that, but the important moral of the story here is that this cookie box that is made from this competition raises money for an endowed scholarship that I know Chef Reed has been working really hard on producing an endowed scholarship. And I've seen this work firsthand. So many students in this program could not afford to go to IUP and continue their education without scholarships from IUP. So that was important for me to volunteer for that. Additionally, I toured students through IUP Punxsutawney campus. This is interesting and an important thing that I did because I was talking to students about what is their high school program like? What did they like about their high school program? What encouraged them to go the culinary route? What are they looking forward to in continuing their education? And that's how I used that opportunity. Moving forward, I volunteered at the annual Family Consumer Science IUP Workshop Day. This is Mrs. Michelle Torty from IUP. She is a Family Consumer Science Liaison, and it was wonderful seeing her and working with her. This is a workshop that I attend yearly. It's a great workshop. It's good to see the behind the scenes and how this workshop happens. It's a lot of behind the scenes work and great work from Chef Reed as well, who puts her time into that. Additionally, I think here we're moving on to, I toured Nemacolin. That was really interesting because I sat down with the chefs and of course they fed me. It was really good food. You should go to Nemacolin, right? But I sat down with the chefs and talked about all the career opportunities that are available in culinary. We're not just talking about being a line cook here. We're talking about the agriculture side, the business side, the finance side, the food photography, the food science, the front of the end. There's so much that goes into obtaining this degree from IUP that you could use this education. So it was a good time had by all. This is Chef Barnes, Chef Reed, and myself having a great time. Moving on, I did accompany Chef Reed and her regional ACF competition to Buffalo, New York. This is a quarter of the United States that competes. It's it's an amazing competition to watch and see how much effort goes into it. Congratulations to her. She did win this competition and she is going to nationals this year, which I will be
She'll be coming too.
accompanying her for that. There's a lot of prep work that has to happen ahead of time for that. So this was great because I wanted to know how we could run competitions, food competitions in our own school. And so I wanted to take this opportunity to go there. And last, and maybe my most favorite, is attending the National Invitational for Pro Start. And this blew me away. And IUP, well, not IUP, but Indiana has not taken part into this competition in quite a while. This is a competition where students use 2 butane burners and they create 6 plates, 3 different courses within 1 hour. And we're talking about like baking cakes, so they have to fashion an oven. So it was rigorous, it was amazing, and I got to act as an ambassador for a team. IUP wrote on my behalf so I could have the opportunity. And then I also did accompany the IUP table and volunteered on IUP's behalf. And this is admissions counselor Caleb Argo, who I'm standing here with. So I hope you ask questions about that because that was cool. All right, moving on, next slide. So what do we offer right now? We offer a lot in the Family Consumer Science department. I am not talking about all of the areas that we cover because it is a lot. I'm only talking to you today about our culinary experiences. And at the junior high, we have a rotational class, which we offer a skills unit. So all of our students have the opportunity to have basic. We focus on safety and sanitation and nutrition during that time. And then at the senior high, Ms. Cup has a rigorous and very full schedule where she teaches 7 out of her 10 periods in the fall and 7 out of her 10 periods in the spring, with really a packed class offering a la carte baking and chef's corner. So there's clearly a need. And I want to mention here, and I want you to think about what are the first jobs that students typically have in high school. Often at a restaurant, right? It's at a grocery store. I hope that you guys have gone grocery shopping lately. There's students shopping for you. There's students checking you out, stocking the shelves, right? Or maybe it's at the country club, but often it's related to food. So there's a demand here in Indiana for our students, but there's also our schedules reflect a demand as well. So I wanted to point that out to you. Can we move on to the next slide? So realistically, very realistically, let's talk about what can I do? What can Mrs. Brady, who's came with me and sat with me tonight, I'm really thankful for her presence here. What can she do? What can we do for our students right now with the education that I just received from IUP? And the first is that Mrs. Brady and I have both worked on our ServSafe training. That was a recertification for us, but there's a part of that where we can be certified to teach ServSafe and then proctor the test for ServSafe. It is a very rigorous test, but that, yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I was going to say pathway for graduation. That's an industry recognized certificate.
It is.
ServSafe.
It is.
And Mr. John's been very successful with a couple of students to earn that to help meet
Yes.
that pathway for. So
Good.
you became facilitators. That would be fantastic.
Not a problem for us now. So this is appropriate to point out to Mr. For Mr. McElhaney is indicating to you, this is appropriate for high school students only, which I'm happy to, I'm always happy to work with you.
Did they have to be 18 to take the test?
No, absolutely not. And this is important to point out. Many students that come to IUP have earned this. Like if they have attended ICTC, they have earned the certificate, and that means they get a test out of a course through IUP, which is wonderful. That saves them money, it saves them time. It's a great thing, and it puts them competitive, and it really helps our community to have this for our community. So. We are both ready to serve you there. The next couple of classes are something that I'm proposing to you. So we have curriculum for Co-Ed Cafe. Maybe we need to change the name there, but we have curriculum for Co-Ed Cafe, and we have curriculum for foods and more foods classes. These are classes that were offered before the 9th grade transitioned up to the high school. They were a 9th grade class, and I'm asking for them back. right? I want to teach them. And there's honestly no reason why I cannot teach it. And I'm going to outline for you the positives and the negatives. I'm going to be very real with you on how I can teach these classes. So Foods, and More Foods, it's a basic foods class. And this is a great way. It's a semester class. We would offer it to 16 to 18 of our students that are really interested and excited to get into foods classes a little bit sooner, and we can offer it at the junior high. Now, a tricky part here is food has become kind of expensive, right? Have you gone grocery shopping lately? It's become expensive. And our budget has not changed at all since I've become a teacher here at Indiana Area School District. So I'm asking to teach this class next year. And all that needs to change for me is a duty period. So in the middle of my day, right now, I am used either as an in-school facilitator or in the cafeteria or a study hall, however they need me that year. And instead of having that in the middle of the day, I could have this class instead. So it's an easy switch for us. And I could go ahead and teach this class. I would like to use this as a stepping stone. So I would like to only offer it for 1 year. And the following year, I would like to offer Co-ed Cafe, which is really where my heart and passion has been and where I have been begging for this class to come back for many years. Co-ed Cafe really speaks to our entrepreneurship. It is running a restaurant. It is everything from the planning steps. So our students come in, they plan it, right? They cost the food. All right, they make the food, they serve the food, they communicate through this whole process. And the nice thing is, because it's also serving our teachers, and bringing joy to our building, it's also bringing revenue back to our curriculum. And so by transitioning from Foods, and More Foods, I'm not asking for more money if I teach that class. However, Co-ed Cafe is an 80-minute class. It needs to be 80 minutes. If you can imagine what it's like to cook with students in 39 minutes, it's quite a rush. We do it, but it's a rush. 80 minutes is necessary for this class in order for it to be successful. Again, I'm asking for that one swap in the middle of my day, which would happen instead of covering a duty, I would cover this class and I would teach this class instead. So while we're figuring out a personnel to help me teach this class, which I hope that it's Mrs. Brady. While we're figuring that out, I'm asking to teach Foods, and More Foods next year in the day, in addition to everything I already teach. I want to do more. I want to offer more to our students. So next slide, please. All right, so I've talked to you about what I've done, with IUP. I've talked to you about what I really want to teach, and I wanted to go kind of quickly, and not only because it's getting late at night, but because I want you to ask me questions. I want you to ask me questions about what's important to you, what's important for you to understand in this process and offering educational sabbaticals, because I promise you it was a really rewarding year. It was rigorous, tiring, but really rewarding year, and I cannot wait to use it for our students.
Okay, I have a couple questions. So this Foods, and More Foods, then it would be an elective, because you do have required courses for the students.
So required courses, they have a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade rotation they would continue to take with us. However, it would be an 8th grade elective, which we already do have curriculum made and board approved. Older, but made and board approved for this class.
Okay, so that, I think, one of the challenges I would see would just be the scheduling. Just to also refresh my memory, Pro Start, is that high school students who compete? Yeah, I remember Walt Albert, which would try to get me to promote that in high schools, and no one was interested, and I don't know why. It's a great program.
It's amazing when you see these kids, and these kids have won states, and they come in running in, and they rent an entire hotel, but running in with their flags to represent their states, and seeing how much work they put into it. And they create binders, and they really research and work hard at that. It's an incredible program.
And then as far as the budget for the foods not going up, do you spend your food budgets to the limit every year?
Yes, absolutely. With pinching pennies, but with worrying about going to the grocery store. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And they don't feed the students. They get, I would assume you just give them samples of, you don't make full course meals for their students.
No.
That's not the idea. They're learning to cook, so.
They're learning, so career readiness and self-sufficiency.
Right. And I, I'm all for this, wonder why. But I think how many students do cook. I mean, I know my grandkids cook, they do go home and cook. cook. So there are a lot of students that have to prepare their own meals.
Yes, on a personal note, I have been a foster parent and I've worked with kids that have encountered scarcity. And it is heavy on my heart to make sure that we're educating our students on how to make budget-friendly, healthy foods. And this comes up often. My children that have been with me, call me often and say, how do I make this? What can I do? I'm out of money for the month. But it's really important that we're teaching everybody in our community these skills.
What kind of a budget are you talking about, since you're asking for money? How much?
So I'm gonna include Mrs. Brady into this as she works with us on our budget. Right now, I don't want to speak out of line. Our budget's $6,000 for the junior high, including
Yeah, and that's for
our sewing.
everything.
Yes, our sewing, our
sewing,
child
not
development,
just
our
foods.
finance. It covers everything. So right now we run 3 encores. So we teach every single student, all 700 students, every single year with that budget. So I'm asking for enough to cover one additional class.
6,000.
No, I'm not asking for 6. I mean, yes, you want to get it.
I'm throwing out a
No, we
number just
have
to see what-
our budget right now is 6,000, and we have been working off of that budget, and it covers all of our content areas in our department, and that covers all 700 students. So I'm asking enough for one additional class, so
$500.
maybe more than that. Maybe
Jenna,
like
you
swing
say-
another $1,000.
You mentioned this would have to be an elective, and you talked to
Yes.
Mike and Krista
Oh,
about.
yes, I hope that they're listening. Dr. Minnick.
He's celebrating a victory.
Yes, he might be celebrating right now.
But-
So it was actually his idea that I come to you and just kind of tell you about my experiences that I've had so far. So I met with them about a month
There you
ago.
See,
Yes.
she went through the proper
So-
channel
And he was like, yes.
and brought a chef too.
Yes.
But no delicious pastries.
That's what I
Everybody expects that, yes.
See, I could provide those maybe next year, Maybe our students could have you in as
Yeah,
part of
okay.
the cafe would be a good opportunity.
And I would just say that we've been talking about moving the junior high schedule, morphing that more toward an elective-based approach to our specials. We've been talking about it for 3 years now. So if this is a step in that direction, I 100% support that. But obviously, we're not, if we're talking about adding staff or something, that'd be a completely different conversation. But if we're talking about a couple $100 for food or, whatever, and we can do it in the schedule and it provides electives for students, and Dr. Minnick and Mrs. Templeton can make it work, then
That's great.
So right now, I'm asking to continue teaching all the classes that I currently teach. I do not want to cut anything from our curriculum. It is all very important. I'm asking to do a little bit more.
is that
Right.
going to work?
And that's the first
Will
step,
that
your
work?
food's food.
It will work. It will work if we swap out my one duty period in the middle of my day to offer this class. So we need somebody to cover ISS for a period so I can offer this class. That's the truth.
Do you want me to come in and cover it?
I think they would agree with that, but yeah.
That's true.
But yeah, but absolutely. So I guess, Mike and Krista will work with Jen and the rest of the team on the schedule. If they can make it work, they'll make it work.
And can I just say that I took that class when I was in 9th grade, and it was one of the
Who taught
highlights.
you?
Who taught me? Paula Daskovich.
Oh, okay, yes, I know Paula.
Yeah. So
She
it was
became
a great
principal then.
experience.
It was a what?
It was a great experience.
No, this is a managerial
It's one that I
decision. If
still
there's already
Everybody loves
curriculum
us.
I
approved,
still remember it. See,
Yeah, see?
there's already curriculum approved. We don't have to have the board approve that. It's not going to require any staff, so we don't have to approve that. If they can make it work and we need to increase the budget at
That's
that point, we will come back to you and say, hey, can we get another $1,000 for Jenna to run her,
Right.
Mary Ann to run their program?
Why don't you put it on the agenda just in case? And we can always not act on it, but if it's on the agenda, we can
That's
approve the extra $35.
I like that.
Excellent. That will get me through the checkout line real quick.
Well, he went to 1,000.
I'm just
That
throwing it
number.
around.
No.
And for what?
Why put it on the motion? Just do it.
Because if it's gonna cost any money, we have to approve it.
Does that come off the curriculum budget or no?
I'm
Could we
sorry?
talk
The
to Dr.
curriculum
Minnick
budget.
about
No, I don't come out of
policy?
the budget, the building budget.
Right,
What Jared would have to do is allocate
Oh,
more
okay.
money to the building at the junior high.
Right.
And
right.
they would spend.
Not much more, but
No.
you have to, yeah. talk to your principal and get a figure, right?
That's it. I mean, that comes down to, can we fit it in the schedule? You know, if we can and we can provide all the programming and we have someone else who can cover ISS, why would we say no? You know?
Yeah, the only thing the board would have is approving any additional funds for it.
Correct.
Okay, and just putting it on the agenda just in case.
I
Okay, unless you
agree.
determine that there's no additional funding needed.
I'm fine with that.
What do you think,
What would
Sue?
we say, up to a certain amount?
Yeah.
Yeah, but he can determine what that's
You can
going to be.
determine what that amount.
Sure, yeah, we'll talk to them afterwards and we'll
That's
find
great.
out. This is on there, but you know.
I do want to wrap up by saying thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to do this program because it would not have been possible without a sabbatical. I missed my students this year. The intent was not to leave the school, but the intent was to provide better opportunities for our students. So thank
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Good job.
Proud of you.
Chef, thank you for the work.
Has been an excellent student, very dedicated.
Good.
Tell Sheriff Pike I said hi, McCombie.
I will, yes. I recognize your name. I don't know if we were met before, but I know.
She's on the block
I
over
would
there.
be real quick if you guys, boom, I'll be fast if you guys can
Thank
be
you for
fast.
coming.
I was mainly came from River Valley.
Okay, River Valley is next. So I shared with you the MOU that I shared with you the MOU from River Valley. River Valley has asked us to consider a partnership that would go above the law, what the law explains for career technology education. So what the law says is this: if career education has to be provided for all students, if one of our students wants to go to a SIP-coded program, which is classification of instructional program, a state-approved career and technical program, we have to find a partner to provide that within reason, right? We do not have to pay to send someone to the south side of Pittsburgh. However, would we have to send someone to ICTC? Yes. Admiral Perry Votech? Yes. River Valley STEAM Academy? If they offered a unique STEM SIP code, we would have to do that, okay? What they're asking us to do is to also approve sending students there for what they're calling program of studies, which are not SIP coded, approved by the state, but they have national SIP codes. So they originally were designed for higher ed, really. These programs of study will have industry certs with them, right? So they will have industry certifications. They'll have some skills that the students could benefit from. They've done a very nice job putting together a menu of options for their kids down there to try to make that building viable and that program viable, and I applaud them for that. However, we have run into a couple of roadblocks lately. I've included a letter that we received at the ICTC from River Valley expressing their intention to break away from that organization. 2 years ago now, they broke away from the health consortium, and basically, and we have litigation regarding getting the money that they owe that health consortium back. So we're kind of in a tough spot here. Additionally, we've received a letter from the IEEA, which I have at each of your places. You can read through it, and I can get the two of you a copy. But it basically says that if we enter into a program and start sending kids to another LEA, they will consider that a diversion of labor and grieving. So we're kind of in an impasse here. With River Valley pulling out of ICTC, our responsibility ICTC is going to go up. We are part owners of the ICTC. It would not be in our financial interest to send kids to River Valley's program for SIP-coded programs that exist at the ICTC. So the only benefit for our students would be if they're interested in something like esports, which we currently do not have. Although it's not a SIP-coded program, we could decide to work with River Valley and send a student down there. However, at that point, the union will grieve it and say that you are sending our students to a different school district to be taught by other teachers. So I promised them that I would have this conversation with all of you, but
Yeah, I just need a little bit of clarification.
Sure.
Okay, you mentioned if, say, our students didn't have a program at our ICTC, we could send them to Admiral Perry in Evansburg.
correct,
Have we ever done that, though?
we have, yes.
Okay, now what do our teachers think of that?
Well, if it's a SIP code program, they don't have anything to say about it because it's law.
I see.
So the law says we have to do that. So there are 2 programs that River Valley has approved right now that have SIP codes that are unique to ICTC. If a student wants to go to that, like they have a health occupations class that's different than the one we have here, we would have to send them. I mean, the law says that, and we would make that accommodation and do whatever we had to do.
Right,
But what River Valley is asking us is to approve all of their programs of study.
right,
I don't think it's going to be possible at this time.
right.
And but I did promise them that I would have a conversation with all of you. I just think that with them pulling out of ICTC, that presents a potential problem. The other thing is they recently partnered with 21st Century Learning Centers, which is a cyber charter school. They have their own cyber charter school. So why partner with another one? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it's concerning because it might be a way that they could get around things like union agreements and
Yeah, absolutely.
things like that. So, and I don't know, and I'm speculating here. You know, to this point, they have not done anything to tell us that that is exactly their plan. But I just don't understand why you would have to partner with an outside cyber when you have an internal cyber.
And we
Yeah,
haven't
no,
even
we
voted
would-
on the, we haven't, even-
excuse
excuse me,
me.
we haven't even voted on the, each board has to vote on this out of the ICTC.
Correct. ICTC saga has only begun, right? So what
Right.
they have to tell us that they're going to remove themselves. We then each have to vote and the majority of the sending schools boards have to allow them to leave, or they can't even leave the ICTC. However, they went from 58 students a few years ago down to 12 this year, and they plan on sending none after those 12 work their way through. So over the next 3 years, whether it's through official board action or it's just through action on them, they won't be
So
part of
when, I really took objection, had a real kind of a cross attitude toward the article in the paper that said that they were paying $32,000 a year per student, which was not true of the entire ICTC
Correct.
member districts.
And
So we don't pay that per student.
No.
But
And that's
they deliberately dropped that enrollment.
correct. Yes, it's mathematically true
Yeah.
this year that they're paying that, but that's by their own devices. Like they've made the decisions to do that. Had they had 50, 60, 70 kids, it would be a fraction of that. So it's just by their efforts to try to make their own STEAM Academy viable. It makes sense for them to pull their kids out, but it does cause that. I mean, they're still legally obligated to pay those fees for the next 3 years. So we have a lot of things to work out on that front before we can talk about entering into MOUs.
Well, I mean, he even says here, Mr. Martell, in his letter, given River Valley's impending withdrawal, we will neither support nor assume responsibility for any new bonds or capital debts incurred. That's a little absurd then until the districts have voted, because if there's not a unanimous vote, they're going to have to, they can't technically leave.
Right. It doesn't have to be unanimous. It has to be a majority of the sending schools.
Good.
So
that would be how many?
And Rob,
Three.
have you talked to the other superintendents to see if they received an MOU?
I know that Homer Center School Board has considered a partnership and rejected that partnership.
Okay, but that's, because I talked to someone from another school and on the school board, and they said they didn't receive an MOU. I don't know.
No, I think because of the proximity, I think we're the most likely partner for them.
True.
I don't think it's
And Homer City would.
Homer Center would be the other one, maybe United be pushing it, but
Do they offer any SIPs code that our ICTC does not?
there are 2 currently approved SIP codes that they offer that we do not at the
So
ICTC.
if our kids wanted to go there,
We would
our
be-
individual students wanted to go there, we would have to allow them to
We
go.
would be legally obligated to reach out to River Valley and see if we can make that happen.
And they would have to take them if they have the room.
They don't necessarily have to take it.
Because we don't approve the MOU.
Well, no, they can reject students, but we would have to, like, if that student was a behavior issue or had terrible grades or something, they can reject the
I
student.
But
But
what they're asking with this partnership is that we approve all
all of their programs.
So we end up competing with ourselves.
Correct. I mean, yeah, financially, it doesn't make a lot of sense. As far as right now with all the actions that they've taken have signaled, separation from all of the other partnerships. So I don't understand that aspect of it. I think we have a lot of work to do to figure that all out. So down the road, if a lot of these other things clear up, if that cyber school question clears up, if the ICTC stuff works itself out and it's amicable and we've separated, have a friendly separation, and we're in a situation where kids can benefit from it, fine, but we would still have the union issue of we can't send students there to a program, because essentially a program of study without a zip code is an elective.
Right.
So it's like sending a kid down there for food.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't make any sense that, and we're not required to allow that to happen. If it's a zip code, then we're required.
That's right.
Okay,
Correct.
there's no benefit to the school district to approve this MOU.
And it's
No.
premature. I mean, it's like 2 years early. I mean, it's gonna take a while, Rob, to get all this done.
The ICTC stuff is gonna take some time to figure out. I mean, the only thing that there would be programs that they offer that our students might be attracted to.
But if they do that, okay, our students still have the right next week to go there, just like Admiral Perry.
If it's a SIP,
If it's a zip code,
State
okay, if it's not a zip code,
then it's elective.
then they have to make it a zip code.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, they do, I mean, and I will say in their defense, I will say this, they have done a nice job building industry certifications and higher ed partnerships. So they have nice college and high school idea programs, and they have nice industry certifications to go with it. They've done a really good job.
They do,
However, that said, all of this other stuff
yeah,
causes problems. And,
exactly.
And
so
I don't
we're.
know their financial situation either.
And I'm not criticizing them at all. And now our teachers don't want us to, so I think we shouldn't. We'll blame our teachers.
Well, I mean, it's a serious situation. Teachers would probably
No, we
be,
can take it. You say no.
Yeah.
Right. I said, we can take it. Don't blame it on the teachers. You say no.
They know I'm
I'll
kidding.
stand up, I'll stand up on my own and be against this until the cows come home. We have a viable ICTC, and some of these schools have been forbidding expansion of the ICTC. They have been not good stewards of that building and of those programs, in that they haven't allowed buildings to expand. And this is one of the districts that, unless everybody approves an expansion. And so we're looking up, when we went up there, okay, that building was built and that's it. Okay, and so doing any expansion at all has been forbidden.
Right.
And I should say that their representative to that governing body, the JOC, has resigned. And there's no replacement appointed.
Yeah, but unless we have 100%.
Correct.
On a bond. So we're paying off the ICTC bond this October, I believe it is. Okay, and so we could reevaluate, we could re-extend that bond several million at our same cost.
Right.
To put in new programs, to expand the welding, to do this, to do that, to put a modern HVAC system in the building that has not been allowed to happen. Okay, but with these people, they resigned, but we need 100% concurrence in order to put a bond in place. And so we're gonna have these people not sitting at the table to approve any improvements to that building.
And saying publicly that they're not going to accept anything that we decide without them. So we have some problems. And that's really it. And with your permission, I would like to put this on the board agenda for next week and publicly reject it if that's what the board wants. And then have Attorney Repack write a letter to Mr. Martell and Mr. Giese to say, here's why, right?
Does everybody agree with, do you agree with that?
I agree.
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you for that. And then we do have to talk a real brief update on Strategy Solutions. We have received the survey, the public survey closed last week. We had over 800 responses.
Get out of here.
Yeah, so it's been tremendous. 746 of them, I believe, are valid. Other people, they either put their address or they don't. They live in Tennessee. We had a couple of those. So we then had a meeting today. We broke it down. Our Secretary Laura Cravens is a whiz, and she ran the addresses through the transportation software and found all the people who live within a half mile of Horace Mann and those who live within a mile of Horace Mann. And we're going to disaggregate the data based on proximity as well as interest. So the teachers, the neighborhood, all of those people will weigh in, and you'll be able to see that data. They'll be making a presentation on Monday night so that we can determine that. Now, that said, we've also simultaneously had that response still open on the website. And we got a whole slew of responses. I think I'm going to send most of them to you because there's a lot, and they're all over the place. But I will summarize a couple of them for you. We got one from Marianne Dodson, who said that the building is very strong and sound in structure, and we should not leave it. We should put an elevator in it and keep it as a school and keep it the way it is because it's a good building that can't be replaced. We had someone right after that say make it a skate park because Mac Park has closed their skate park. We have one that says sell the building. It is foolish to keep putting money into this building. Let the people who buy it worry about rezoning it. Why would the borough not rezone it and pass up the tax revenue? We have another one that says expresses their deep concern. They don't understand why we would make that an administrative building. Wasn't one of the options that we considered, so I think we maybe misunderstood a little bit here. But they go on and basically say, look, keep the building as it is, put classrooms back in, bring it up to ADA compliance. The price of the building is, the cost, you're never going to get out of it what it's worth, is basically what this person is summarizing. And again, I'll send all these to you. Then the next person says, sell the building, let the new owners worry about the zoning. I feel the building should be repurposed into a community center of sorts. Even the YWCA would be great. There are centers in Pittsburgh, Greensburg, Johnstown, but not Indiana. YWCA creates a safe, inclusive space for women and children to thrive. And they put a link to the YWCA, which not opposed to anything like that, but they have not. YWCA has not reached out. Make it an old school market. We had a gentleman just write, I vote no.
Yeah.
The Horseman building should be sold as soon as possible. It's an old money pit. It's landlocked. It's not up to current standards. It's full of asbestos, and any move to improve it is going to turn into millions of dollars. Sell it. We need to upgrade and modernize our facilities, and thinking ISD is the most deplorable facilities in all the districts in the county. Very few students are walking to school. Take a look at how many kids get dropped off as opposed to walking. We have 0 elementary schools with a legitimate full-size gymnasium. We have multi-purpose rooms. Take a look at Penn's Manor, Marion Center, Homer Center, River Valley. They have progressed. ISD has not. I would rather have a school with modern facilities to attract families. Let's build a new school, state-of-the-art, and see. Armstrong did it, and they have beautiful complexes. Perhaps you need to visit other facilities to see. And they go on, but again, I'll summarize. I think the plan of the building is to build a totally new building, housing Ben Franklin, Ike, and Horace Mann. That should be revisited. The amount of money that would be put into Ike to rebuild it and then to fix up Horace Mann is crazy, in all caps. Build a new building to house all the students. There's got to be somewhere in this town big enough to build a new building. Why don't you keep asking the same question until you get the answer that you want? Continue to beat the dead horse. So I think that person must have gotten the survey after we had this out. So.
Nice.
I mean, the nice thing about that is clearly we've communicated to the public. You get an opportunity to weigh in here.
Right. How will you send this to us, in a link?
I'll just copy and paste it and put it in the email. Like I'll copy and paste the new ones and send it.
Okay, good, great.
So I feel Horace Mann should be considered for use as the district administrative offices. Moving the administrative offices to a current East Pike location would open up more space for classrooms at East Pike, et cetera, et cetera.
must have talked to the other person.
Yes.
Right?
In an administrative building, so they got that idea.
Maybe. You might be right. And then the last one is sell the building to private interests. One person I should admit, I left out the piece. He said, do not rent it because you will be responsible for upgrades if you rent it.
Right.
Which is,
we know that.
we should consider that because next Monday, you're probably going to be considering the rental agreement from Marikey as well. So.
But that's only for a year, right?
Correct. That's 1 year. That's a 1 year lease and we would go from there.
I thought it had some renewable clause.
What's that?
I thought it had renewable clause.
It does have a renewal clause, but both sides have to agree, so.
So it does that technically right, but town has to agree.
Correct. So, and real quick, I just want to do this very, very quickly because we did a lot of work to get this ready. At the last meeting I was not at, it was brought up that our programs are not effective and our scores have been dropping, have not been rebounding. And I got a couple of calls about that to investigate the reality of that. And that is not exactly true. Have our PSSA scores dropped? They absolutely have. There's no question about that. But if you, in the document that I shared with you that looks like this, you will see that this is consistent across the state, it's across the county. Yep, I'm gonna give it to you.
Oh, okay.
Back. Okay. So this is a trend across the county, across the IU, across the states, across the nation. And if you look at it, you can clearly see that the pandemic had something to do with it. So, Randy, am I presenting? Are people seeing this?
Yes, you are.
There we go. Okay. So I did want to talk about the work that our teachers are doing because it is significant. And if you look very quickly, I'm going to fly through this data. So if you have questions, stop me and ask me. But
Before you start, I did ask Rob before the
Yeah.
meeting if we could schedule a workshop like they did with the budget, just to look at data.
which I think
So
is a
that
great
the
idea.
academic committee could have a meeting
Great idea.
just to look at, not have, I love these presentations, it's
Yeah.
great, but I think we need time just to really dig into
Dig
the
in.
data and hear.
And I would
Good idea.
love that, and I think everybody at the table would love that, because we
Yes.
do want you to understand where we're being successful and where we need to attack, especially as a committee. You should know that. But bottom line is this, the question was, is the reading program effective? This graph here, this one here, is where we started 5 years ago when we moved, and this is kindergarten data. This is where we started with about 50% of our students being able to decode words and read, access the code, right? This is where we are now. So we've had almost a 30% increase in the number of students who can actually read.
Rob, where did you get this data?
This is from our system called Acadience. So we use the Acadience assessment where our reading specialists and teachers sit down and do reading prompts with students, and they score them, and then they enter the data into this computer, and it spits out these pretty graphs.
Okay.
Blue means that they are well above benchmark. Look at, we have significant growth in the blue. Green means they are at benchmark, yellow means they're almost there, and red is they're significantly behind where they should be.
Right.
So you can see we have significantly shrunk the red in kindergarten, shrunk the yellow in kindergarten, and grown our green and blue.
And what years were these, did you say?
This is right before the pandemic. This is right before the pandemic hit, right when we first started, and this was just last week. And that's district-wide. So, this is something, Ben Franklin is actually going to have a celebration on Thursday because of their data. And you can see here, this is basically the same thing that they were working on this simultaneously when I was working on it. This is where Ben Franklin started. And I don't know if you can see that, but they had a lot more red and a lot more yellow than you're seeing here. They are up here now, which is significant. It's 35% increase, which is tremendous. And then this is the other one I want to show you here. So this is third grade end of year right here. So these kids right here that are all red and yellow, or 70% red and yellow, are these kids right here.
Nice.
So we have recovered from the pandemic. We are moving in the right direction. And I think it's important that we say that we point out the work that these teachers are doing is absolutely tremendous. Let me move on here real quick so you can see.
While you're doing that, can I just say that we had our celebration today in our fourth grade. For the first time, our triangle is now right side up. We are at 81% for fourth graders going to fifth grade.
She ruined my surprise.
80. Yeah.
But-
We're 81.
Ruined it.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I was just so excited.
But this is third grade. The reason I bring up third grade is our goal has always been that we get all kids reading at level by the conclusion of third grade. We're not there yet. But again, we're making progress. As you can see, this is where we started. That's where we are now. And this is fourth grade. And again, these are those students that were in kindergarten when the pandemic hit. So we shut down halfway, with the last quarter of school. We quarantined them all for 15 days at a time, several times a year, the next time, and taught with masks on and try to teach phonemic awareness with a mask on our face. You know what I mean? And so we had disruption after disruption. We continued that for the first half of the next year. So their first normal school year was last year, and we're recovering. So we still have a lot of work to do. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it.
It's the
But
first year they ever went on a field trip.
was last year.
Yeah, and it's tremendous. The work that these teachers have done to close this gap is significant. So I want to make sure that everybody is aware of that. This graph here shows these are the students that started in the red at the beginning of the year, this past year. And look at all the blue and green that we've gotten. That's significant. They've cut the number of red students in half, if not more. These are the students that started in the yellow. Again, we like all that green and blue. I'm not crazy about this, but no, it's perfect. You know, again, here's the green. These started in the green. Look at all that blue now. And then these are the students that started in the blue. We lost a couple to the yellow, but we're still, you know, proud of the work that the teachers are doing. It shows that this shows that the intervention programs we're using in most places are working. We've identified a couple places where they're not, but and we need to improve. But I just want to make sure that everyone understood where we were. This is the PSSA scores across the district compared to all students in the state who are economically disadvantaged. So these are similar school districts to our demographics. This is the county of Indiana. This is the Armstrong IU and Indiana IU, and that's the state. And you will see the similar patterns in the data. However, you also see that Indiana still remains higher in almost every category than the state and the county, and right about the same as Aaron IU. Freeport beats us for some reason. I'm angry about it. But here's math, and you can see there was a comment that our scores have not recovered. We're not recovering. There is a little bit of a J, right? We're coming back up a little bit. It's not tremendous. We still have a long way to go, because one way to interpret this is 50% of our kids can't do math, which would not be inaccurate, right? However, we are moving in the right direction this year. The state achievement comparison in biology, or this is science, I'm sorry, science across all grade levels. You can see we're significantly higher than most other places. Now, I will say this, Homer Center did beat us in science this past year. They did, but then we hired all their teachers. So, my apologies to Mr. Cesare. But yeah, so then the Keystone, this is all Keystones combined. So if you take all the students that passed all the Keystones, this is our comparison to like schools, the county, the state, and the IU. And again, you can see that we're doing above what most people are doing. This is the literature Keystone. And again, that achievement is still relatively high, although 70% still doesn't seem very high. It is high compared to most people in the state. And I'll show you that in a different way here. Math, we got some work to do in math. There's no doubt about that. But again, the trends are pretty much similar. Biology, again, you'll see that J curve a little bit. We're on the rebound. But was just released, and this is the other big surprise. Last week, the Pittsburgh Business Times ranked all 500 school districts across the state. We were 97th in their rankings. And the nice thing about this is that those rankings are based on standardized test scores. So to put this into perspective, you know, if one way to look at this is to say that we are the 97th best school district in the entire Commonwealth when it comes to standardized test scores, and we have a lot of room to improve. So we're very excited about what the future holds. So I wanted to share that. And then Mr. Harley asked me, is there any way you can show us where we are compared to the rest of the county? These are the PVAS scatter plots, and they're very, very cool. This is achievement this way. So the higher up on the board you are, the better you achieve. This way is growth. So you want to be in this quadrant. If you're in that quadrant, you're doing things right. Well, look who this is. That's the Indiana Senior High School right there. So we're growing students and we're achieving. These are all the other schools from the state. There's Blairsville, and everybody else is down here. Now that's in math.
Rob.
Yes, sir.
That doesn't include the junior high scores.
No, it doesn't. That's the that might. It might. I don't know that. I have to look. But what Wade's saying is a lot of our best students take the Keystone in math in 7th or 8th grade. So by the time we get to the high school, it's students that's data that doesn't count for his building that, you know.
See, that's,
So it hurts a little bit. Give me 1 second, bring back up the county. A terrible glare. Okay, so this is now Keystone Biology. And that's Indiana Area School District right there. So we're still the highest achieving school in the county, and we're still the one that's growing the students the best in the county on that one. And then we get to English, and this is where we have some work to do, and we kind of talked about that today. This is now Indiana County, or Indiana Area School District. We're still the highest achieving, the highest up the on the achievement matrix, or on the axis, but we're not growing students, and that came through in the data that the teachers share with you today.
Right.
We have a curricular issue at the senior high, and we need to figure it out. And we also probably have one at the junior high that we're figuring out right now. So we need to do some work on what that is. We need to do some work on the instruction. And you're all right about teaching across the curriculum, et cetera. All of those ideas are good ideas, and that's something that we're all going to explore and work toward. But we are still the highest achieving school district in the county. We're the second highest in 2 different subjects in the IU because Freeport beat us that much.
These would also be children, now students, that would not have gotten any at all phonemic awareness or phonics foundation, which are the building blocks to learning how to read.
Yeah.
So that's
a fair point too.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to.
They never taught phonics or phonemic awareness before?
Not with benchmark. It was not very strong.
I don't know.
We were doing benchmark and dance. Because I came in as a second grade teacher and was immediately very concerned because my students just didn't have
I didn't
a
realize
strong
they stopped doing
foundation.
phonics. That ever stopped. I mean,
I don't know what was being taught before benchmark, but my current class would be like 9th graders, the kids that I started with.
But to answer all the questions that I got in response to that, we're still doing okay. Do we have work to do? We absolutely do. There's no doubt about it. But we are celebrating in our schools for the amount of growth we've gotten in most subjects. So I do want to make sure that everybody's clear on that one.
so funny how, like, when I taught, the focus was phonics.
Phonics.
Yes.
Yeah.
On what?
It comes full circle.
Phonics.
Oh,
When I taught kindergarten, first grade.
Yeah,
you asked
then
any teacher
moved
that
away
the
from it.
kindergartners weren't expected to read or write other than their alphabet.
When we do have this meeting, Rob, about the data,
Yes, ma'am.
and we're gonna invite the whole entire board and make it on a night that's not a board night, correct?
Yes, let's
Just
do it.
like
I mean,
we
we
did.
can pick a day. I would say either in August, because July, we want to give our principals vacation, but.
And our board members.
And our board members. Maybe August or September, we get together. And I told Dr. Reed, we're going to have to figure this out because the new data that's being collected right now from our Keystones and PSAs usually comes out in like October. It didn't come out till November this year.
The growth information comes in October, our achievement comes about mid-July.
Right. So we can look at a lot of things, but it wouldn't be a complete book view until the fall. So maybe we wait till the fall and do it, so we can really dig in. And we'll look at data at every level. These things, you notice if you want to look at these later, we don't see as much growth in first grade as second grade, but we think we know why. And we'd love to share all that with you, but that's for a different time. We can really dig in, So that's all I have, Dr. Reed. If that's.
Anybody else have anything for the good of the committee?
I'm halfway out the door.
Okay. I guess that's a no for Tom.
You are.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, in many ways.
Okay,
It
meeting
is
adjourned at
8:34.
8:34.
Another 3-hour meeting.
I apologize. We'll get better.
It's the
We had a
most
lot of
important
presentations.
thing.
What's that?
It's the most important thing.
Hey, we clap for everybody else, we should clap for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Teachers teach kids, right?
I think I'm
That's it.
waiting for.
They have some other pieces.